Is this my copy? Kevin, is this my copy or this one?
No, no, it's your copy.
Oh, okay.
Just for us to have, that's all.
Okay. So are they ready now?
Her face.
Ready? Good evening, everybody. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:24. Will you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag, state of Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Roll call, please. Here.
Here. Here. Present.
Thank you, board members. We're going to go ahead and move on to 1A, which is the oath of office, to welcome our new board member, Ms. Sandra Jeff. Is it on?
Hello. I, Sandra Jeff,
I, Sandra Jeff,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the Constitution and laws
of the State of New Mexico,
of the State of New Mexico,
and that I fully
and that I fully
and impartially discharge
and impartially discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of school board member
of school board member
on which I am about to enter
in which I am about to enter
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Come join us up here.
I would just like to say thank you very much to Honorable Judge Silversmith for coming in this evening and letting this happen. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Go ahead. Welcome, Sandra. Okay. We'll move to 2. Approval of agenda. Do I have a motion, board members?
Madam President,
Yes.
I move approval of the agenda
Thank you, Lynn.
as presented.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you. We do have several public comments. So we're going to go ahead and if you guys could limit your comments to at least 5 minutes, stay around 5 minutes, please. And just a reminder that, okay, there's more. Oh, okay. Just a reminder that there can't be no comment on personnel, so please be cautious of that. And the first public comment will be from Andrea Thomas.
Good evening, school board members, Mr. Hyatt, and welcome, Sandra Jeff. I have a couple concerns already. School hasn't even started, but I'm going to go ahead and bring this to your attention, school board. Coaching at Tohatchee High School. We currently don't have no coaches there. Volleyball coach. Practice across New Mexico is supposed to start Monday on August 8th. And apparently our school doesn't have a volleyball coach yet. You know, it affects our children when they look forward to going to school and they look forward to these sports that they're going to also do, you know, and me going and asking questions at the high school, calling and asking them when volleyball is going to start, asking the coach there who assisted last year, and the feedback was there can only be one head coach per sport. I don't know if there's a policy that has been started or there is a policy that's going through, but I appreciate it if the board lets the parents know and let them get involved, you know. All this is just verbal, like a verbal policy, you know, and that's not right. As far as another issue is fundraising. You know, there are several parents, and I was the third parent to go up and ask about fundraising. And again, I was told everything was on hold as far as fundraising, and there's not going to be no booster club and stuff. You know, that's a concern to me as a parent, where my daughter is very athletic, And you know, when they go to these away games and stuff, their per diem that they have is very little, you know. And I've witnessed this, where they go in to eat, and there are these girls standing together saying, okay, we only have this much. You get 2 orders of fries, I'll get the drinks, and you get the dollar burgers. You know, that's not right. They go out, they need to be fed. And then for us parents wanting to help and assist, you know, and then now we're being told that fundraising's on hold. Is that another thing, I mean, that you guys have already made a policy on? And then sack lunches. I'm already told that it is only going to be sack lunches this year. Why? I'm sure when you guys go to meetings and stuff, administration, school board members, you don't take sack lunches. And then as far as money and stuff, you know, school board members, I don't think you get paid to be at these meetings. I'm sure there's people in here that do get a stipend to attend these meetings. Well, this money can go back to the children at school for classroom activities, for sports. Please look at this and address this. And if there's policies, the parents want to see it before verbally being told no. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boardman Martin.
Good evening, school board, people in the audience. My concern isn't a new one. As a matter of fact, I feel frustrated because this is probably about the 20th or 30th time, could even be 50th time that I've been up here speaking about this. This relates back to a problem that started back when the current superintendent came into office. I'm talking about school bus transportation. It's been terrible for the past 4 years, and I hate to say this, but it's only getting worse. What I want to address first is the fact that the school buses had stopped coming down our roads 4 years ago, and I think the last school year I brought this up that I wanted to know what was being done about it. Here we are 3 months later, the start of another school year, and we still don't know what's going on with this issue. We still don't know that after the school buses were halted by the superintendent, that we didn't know what their solution was. And to me, that's ridiculous. 4 years of not having a solution. And now, it's getting even worse. 3 months ago, I was made aware by the transportation director that some of these bridges were being officially assessed, and that probably some of them would not even be allowed to have the small buses come over this year. 3 months ago, he knew about this. The superintendent knew about this. Nobody has come out publicly and talked to the people who are going to have to deal with this situation now, the parents. Come on. It's completely ridiculous. I know I've addressed this to the school board before, 4 years ago, and like I said, many times since then. What's going to happen? Last year, our family was very lucky. We have four daughters in the school system. We were very lucky, and I'm saying lucky because I was sick. I was home on medical leave for 6 months, so I was able to help out. I was able to go and drop my daughters off 2 or 3 times in the morning because the school buses come at different times, and then again in the afternoon when the buses came home. This year, we're not so lucky. I'm not going to be home on sick leave. I want to know what's going to happen to my children. I want to know who's going to take care of them, who's going to get them home. I don't want them dropped off at the bridge 2 miles away from my home. It's ridiculous. Brings me, there is no communication. Not a single letter coming out to parents regarding this bus situation. And this isn't the only thing that I'm bringing up that there's no communication for. There's no communication, period. And I'm pretty sure you're all aware of it and familiar with it. I don't know if you guys have communication with the superintendent. Something needs to be done about this. This needs to be addressed. Like I said, here we are 4 years later, and the situation's only gotten worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Alonso, Jim Martin.
Good evening, school board members and audience. My name is Sanlatsa Jim Martin, also known as Sunshine. I'm a parent, I'm a community member, I'm an activist. You've seen me here quite a lot, and I'm here to share some comments with you this evening. First, I would like to sincerely congratulate Sandra Jeff for being our new school board member. I'm very pleased that you have joined the Gallup McKinley County School Board of Education. I believe that you will do a phenomenal job adding to all the knowledge and experience that our school board members have, and I'm looking forward to the community that you represent, Crown Point, Tseagay, the Church Rock community, and all the way out where our relatives live, for having your voice. Many parents from all over the school district come to me. They come to me with concerns. They come to me for advocacy, and many of them come from your district. I do believe that you are much needed out there as a voice, and to hear parent concerns, student concerns, and also from teachers who don't have a voice out there. So I want to extend my congratulations, because I do know that there have been many negative comments in some of the media about you joining the school board. I want to say that I totally disagree with that kind of comment and concern from one of the local papers, because I do believe it's a divide and conquer tactic. It's dividing our Native American community. It's dividing our Gallup McKinley County School District, and we don't need that. We've fought too long as Native Americans, as parents, to have a voice and to be involved in this school district, and we're not going to let negative publicity divide and conquer us. As a matter of fact, I do believe any faction out there, quote unquote, that exists would be the faction that was tied to the Crown Point principal, who was a racist, who was a bigot, and who tried to hurt our community and our children out in that area. So I do look forward to the many changes and improvements that we will need for all of our parents in that district, but also to have a voice overall to represent all of the students in the Gallup McKinley County School District. Secondly, I want to extend appreciation and recognition to our school board president, Priscilla Manuelito, our vice president, Kevin Mitchell, and for your efforts since the time I started coming to these school board meetings. You've been relentlessly advocating and speaking up for us parents and our children. We are the reason why this school district exists. It's our children that you are serving. And we thank you sincerely, no matter what the media says negatively I have seen you speaking up for those without a voice, and I want to say thank you for doing that. Lastly, it is back to school season, and I would like to share the same kind of concerns that were brought up earlier. Where is Gallup McKinley County Schools in the back to school efforts? We are the largest Native American school district in the United States. Where are the big advertisements? Where are all the notices to our children and our parents and saying, hey, the best school district in the country is opening, come back to school, we're excited, we're looking forward to having everyone come back. I've been at several board meetings where there have been requests for large newspaper ads to increase our enrollment. Where is it? I've been at school board meetings asking for our website to be updated, to have all this current information for our parents, our community members, our youth. Where is it? The website is down, the website is outdated, the website has no current information from the central website to each school. As a parent, that's where I look for information for my children. There are other school districts that are on top of this, that surround us. They are shining. They are making their parents want to bring their kids to the school, to their school district. They are making the youth, the children say, wow, check out that school district. Look at how they treat their students. Look at how they treat their parents, their community. And they want to leave Gallup McKinley County Schools. They want to leave our school district because we are not shining. We are not doing every little thing we can to bring them in. Parents aren't getting communication. We're not getting info. Meeting minutes from the school board are so outdated we can't keep up. There's no email notices, although I get an email notification when the schools are going to be closed or whatever. I don't get anything for what's going to happen in this upcoming school year. There's no letters to parents. There's no announcements. Again, sports season is happening. That's when we get to keep our athletes in our school district, and a lot of them want to leave because they don't know what's going on with our sports. No transportation updates. All of these kinds of supports, this communication, is what makes us parents want to be with the school district, but when it doesn't happen, we have a hard time convincing our children this is the best school district to stay in. Many want to leave to a charter school, many want to leave to private schools. I love Gallup McKinley County Schools. I love the schools I graduated from. And I do not want my children to say, Mom, take us out. We're sick of this school. So please help us. In conclusion, we do have a rich heritage at every school. We should capitalize on it. We have strong families and strong community members from every school. We need to build upon that. We have many ties to our schools, especially in Navajo and Native American studies. That's on your agenda. You have a wealth of knowledge in your backyard to make us shine in that area. We need to build on each unique strength of every school, from the city schools to the rural county schools. There is something unique in all 35 schools we have, and we need to make them shine. So I would like to ask you, school board members, to please take this in consideration. Mr. Hyatt, please take this to the superintendent. We want the Gallup McKinley County School District to move forward and let the politics of Santa Fe be in the past. This is a new time, and it's for us parents and our children.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Jean-Marie DeGroat.
Good evening, school board members and audience. I was at a meeting probably about a couple months ago, and it was about our Navajo Nation police officers. 55 applicants put their application in. I'm sure you read this in the paper. Only 2 passed. And I asked myself, how many of those applicants were graduates from our school district? I'm a graduate of Crown Point High School, and I have 3 kids in the school district, but now I have 1 going to college. And I asked, how many of these applicants were Gallup McKinley County students? Since I came back to this school district, was back the school year 2010 and 11, I asked about reading grades. I asked about reading levels. I'm still wondering, is it still the same? Because according to what I was told, that these applicants can't even read the questions. My daughter, who is going to be a college student, would ask, so-and-so can't even read, so-and-so can't even spell. And this is a 6th grader. And my daughter was reading at post-high school level. And I asked, what's going on with these kids? Why aren't they reading at level? When my daughter started, there was 8 out of 10 that couldn't even read at 6th grade level. A group of 10 kids, only 2 can read at their level. And it's really hard. It's really hurting the Navajo Nation, because I don't know how many square miles it is, but we only have 3 officers per shift. And I really hope we can do something to help these kids that leave, that actually want to be police officers. The only reason I'm speaking up for them is my niece, her dad is a police officer. And he says, yes, those tests are hard to pass, but somehow he got through it. But I tell my kids, just help them. If they don't understand it, get down to their level and help them. And I also like to welcome Ms. Sandra Jeff. Thank you for stepping in. And I really hope that all of you can work together and make an impact. We are starting a new school year. I have a mid-schooler and I have a high schooler now. Right now I'm concerned about my freshman and her class schedule. She's got way too many electives for her first year. She should have science, math, history, an English class, but she's got 3 electives, and I'm really concerned about that, and I know that needs to change. And then our principal, I haven't met him yet, but it was really late in the school year for this individual to start. Why did this person have to start so late? A problem that came up to a parent that said to me that the volleyball or the basketball court is barely going to get its shine because there was no administrator to sign off. No administrator. We had to wait. Finally today they got their paint or whatever they used, their varnish. They're working on the floors now. And next week volleyball practice starts. And this principal said, I don't know about the coaches. I don't know what's going on. I mean, who hired this person, and then who shares what happens or what's going on within the school? And then I even gave him my information. I said, call me if you need anything. I'll try to help you. But that's all I have for now. I know I'll be back next school board meeting. But I'd like to congratulate Ms. Sandra Jeff for stepping up. Thank you. Thank you.
The next one has parent, Navajo Pine and Gallup High School. Oh, okay. I don't see Lada. Sorry about that. My name is Renee Hardy.
Okay.
and I'd like to say hello to the board, welcome Sandra, Jeff, and members of the audience. I'm coming to you this evening because I normally just speak on Navajo Pine. I have a high school student and I have an elementary child that goes to Navajo Elementary. But first I'm going to talk to you about Gallup High School. Just like Sunshine, I have parents calling me now or emailing or texting me to help them speak to administrators. And this time it was Gallup High School. And I wanted to bring this to your attention because I found out we have a senior. She's going to be a senior this year. And she received a letter in June, the later part in June, that she doesn't have enough credits to graduate this year, this coming year. There was no talk of attending summer school. There was no talk of any type of plan for this child. And I said, what? They're Gallup High School. And then I started doing a little bit of research, and I found out that this counselor has always been at Gallup High School. They've never changed counselors. They probably have roots there. And I'm asking myself, why didn't this student have a meeting, a conference with the parents? Where was all of this? So I had the parent call the principal, and of course it's a new principal coming in, and when we spoke to him, he said, well, I'm not sure. And I said, what do you mean you're not sure? And he informed me that he was a new staff coming in. So I said, okay. He's going to call his counselor, and she's going to be back after the 25th. And I said, okay, call us. We'll be back. We went back and we met with the counselor and the principal. And it was quite amazing to hear a principal. And if you want to hear it, this little gadget's really nice to me. For him to blame the student, well, I think it's only because, I'm not going to say the student's name out loud, well, you didn't give the note to your mom. Why are you here? Aren't you here for the students? Aren't you here because of the students? Is what I wanted to ask. But no, the counselor pretty much pointed the finger at the students, and I said, what are you getting paid for? If she's responsible for everything, then why are you here? And then I said out loud, wait a minute, before you start pointing the finger at the student, why didn't you communicate this to the parent? You obviously have an enrollment form. You have her at parent-teacher conference, and they pulled up progress reports with phone numbers, the mother's name, call me if there's anything, and then when she goes to parent-teacher conferences, she's informed, oh, her daughter's doing really great. She attends class. Well, if she attends class and is doing great, why is she failing? Nobody had answers. And it just really bothered me as a parent. Why would someone just point the finger at the student? It's like the student is falling between the cracks here. And what are we going to do about it? Are we going to allow this to continue? Or are we really there to help our students graduate and to go on and pursue higher education? And that's Gallup High School. And they had 4 counselors. And at Navajo Pine, we have 1. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I don't like. I've been reading the paper, and it's been bothering me. We have the school board, we have teachers union, then we have superintendent. It's like we all have our own team with our own agenda. What's wrong with being one big team for our students? I didn't hear anything or see anything or read anything about students. Where do they fall in all of this? We have a great board group here. I'm sure we have great teachers across the district. And we have the superintendent. It seems like we all have our little agendas here. Why don't we work as a team to better our district? Work as a team and talk about our students. Where are our students in all of this? The last thing I wanted to talk about is there is no communication. None. I've gone to the high school and I've asked a couple of questions. Are we okay on all the teachers? The elementary, are we okay? I'm worried and I'm asking the board. I've asked for it before. Sorry. Is accountability. Hold our superintendent accountable. Hold our teachers accountable. Hold our coaches accountable. We all receive some type of payment. We're all hired to do something. I'm sure there's a document stating, okay, this is what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to cover. Accountability. Let's all try to work together for our students, not for ourselves. After all, you guys all have a job here because of our students. You guys wouldn't have a job if we didn't have students in our district. Thank you. Thank you. The next one is Ms. Ruby Haley.
Yet, Madam President, Vice President, Secretary, Ms. Jeff, Mr. Manini, Associate Superintendent Hyatt, ma'am, the audience here. I'm coming to you in front of you as a parent. I also have the same concerns. We have on the school website 5 pages at least of positions that are open. Are those going to be filled by appropriate individuals that will instruct our students so that when they go to college, they will not have remediation courses? Because scholarships, grants, they don't pay for remediation anymore. And if we have substitute teachers in science and math, English, are they going to reach their maximum goals? I also have a concern about the uniform that was in the newspaper. My concern is actually with the staff. If the staff does not follow their uniform policy, why should the students? And if you go into some of these schools, I don't know that I would like my child to go there. Mini skirts, blouses that reveal everything under. For the ladies, like I said before, the men are fine. They wear shirts, ties, slacks. But our young adult children have an expanding mind, and they don't need that when they should be concentrating on school, and we should be assisting them in that manner. The other thing is Johnson O'Malley. Every year, Johnson O'Malley gives the school funding, a certain amount. Every year, we're given a list with 18 items or more, some of them double, for school supplies. Where's our Johnson O'Malley funding going? Our schools can purchase these supplies for our students to learn in the classroom. I have asked some of the schools, where's your supplies? What can you guys get for supplies? They tell me, we have supplies coming out of our ears. Why can't we buy something else? Why are these supplies just locked up? One year I went to Juan de Onate and I had about 10 boxes in a storage room locked up from the previous year. I thought all items purchased with federal money is supposed to be used within that school year. So I made it clear to the principal that they needed to get those supplies out to the students, because there are students in need. Our Native American families, the young children are being raised by their grandparents. And sometimes those grandparents don't have the funding to pay for 5 different children's with lists, 18 items or double. So I would like that addressed with the principals to make sure that those items are being used in the classroom. We even have instructors coming to us asking us, how come we don't have supplies? They're locked up. We can't get to them. So I've spoken to some principals, and they say, well, all they have to do is ask. Why should they have to ask? They're for the classroom, they're for the students. They're for the students to learn. The other thing I want to thank is the school board for selecting Ms. Jeff to assist them and to help them become a unit. And it's just like Ms. Renee said, why can't all you individuals, different entities, come together and support our young children? Doesn't matter who they are, what different nationalities. They're still our young children and they're still our future. The sky should be the limit for them. And we should be here supporting them in whatever they choose they want to do. And not telling them it's the child's fault. It's your fault because you did this, your fault because you did that. Yes, their mind is soft at this age. Native Americans, they keep an eye on their children until they're 35 years old. They don't let go of them because at that time they say, okay, my child is grown. I was fortunate enough to say that to my oldest son. He's 36 years old. And I told him, you are finally grown up. You have a good job. You have a nice home. You have an education in your back pocket. And now you know what you're supposed to do. Thank you. I don't have to worry about you anymore. That's Native American tradition. And all of us need to back up our students, as well as the district and the personnel, to take care of them so that they can succeed, not to knock them down and pull the rug out from under them. Thank you.
Thank you. George Munoz. Trying to read your writing.
Anthony, your boy was giving me the thumbs up as I walked up there, so. Good afternoon. And I think they've touched on almost every issue I want to talk to you about, but I'm going to formally request that I be placed on the next agenda. I think that there's certain questions that need to be answered, either from the board, the superintendent, whoever has to get us the answers. But both these ladies, the lady from Navajo and Miss Haley, touched on topics that I think are very important. I've been to chapter houses, I've been everywhere. Everybody is tired about comments. We don't like this, we don't like that, we need to do that. So what I want in a formal, verbal question and be placed on the next agenda, and I want answers about our public funding. I want to know why $2 million in special ed was not spent by the school district, and who was in charge of it, and why it wasn't spent. I want to know why Johnson O'Malley numbers were falsified. I want to know who was in charge. I want to know the Indian ed supplies that were not given out last year and why they're left in inventory in warehouses. Why were private Indian ed supplies sold to private citizens, and who sold them? I want to know why the board violates House Bill 212 consistently. I want to know why the board is harassing and intimidating employees, and while their employees are left alone. And these are all answers that are all documented by quite a few people from everywhere. And so I want to know why the school board thought they had the authority to take the money out of the classrooms to protect themselves from a lawsuit. I want to know why that $25,000 or $50,000 was allowed to be pulled from a classroom, and my kids go to public school. Why it was, and why you thought you had the authority to do that. I think next year, during the session, I will run legislation to change the way we fill board vacancies. I think that the voters ought to elect the vacancies, and they ought to have the right to choose who they want to represent them when there's a vacancy. I'll leave you with this, that GMS, Gallup McKinley County Schools, is on the state's radar. And these are some of the reasons they're on the state's radar. And they're on the federal radar, too, for these same reasons. So I may ask for additional questions, but at the next board meeting, I would like to be placed on the agenda. So thank you.
Next one, Marcella Kingben.
Good evening, Yate, Shigeshidna, and school board members, Ms. Jeff, Kevin Mitchell, and the rest I have not met before. And the reason I know Mr. Mitchell, Ms. Jeff, and also Mr. Munoz is because we're all on the campaign trail. I'm an individual that's running for the district court judge in the 11th Judicial District that encompasses McKinley County and San Juan County. I have not been to a school board meeting for a long time. When I first came back into the area, I came to a school board meeting, and I think it was at the high school at a different location. That was Gallup High School School Board. And I remember Annie Deschitney was on the school board. You probably all didn't serve at that time. I was the only Navajo there at the time, so thank you, my fellow Navajo people, for coming here, because we need to take charge in our children's education. I hear complaining, griping. I'm glad you're finally all complaining and griping, and it's like people that are younger than me or my age that are coming here. Our parents didn't complain, our grandmothers or grandfathers, they weren't here because, of course, of our culture and our inability to really feel accepted by the community, the non-Indian community. When I was at that meeting, I was the only Navajo person there. And I think we had a basketball game going on at the time. I heard a non-Navajo school board member say, where are the Navajos? Where are the parents? Tell them there's a basketball game and they'll really be there. They'll all be there. I thought that was so funny because, you know, it is true. My daughter played basketball. And my son ran cross country. And talk about Booster Club, when Ryan Dodson's father, who's not Ryan, is now a teacher at Fort Defiance. When his dad was the school board member, just because of his personality, really nice person, we all gravitated to, helping our kids. We had the most money. Cross country had the most money, and later on that changed, and thank goodness my kids had graduated by that time, because at that point I hear a parent complaining about how there's no money for kids now. Because we made the most money, we bought shoes for our kids, we bought clothing for the kids, we treated our kids well. And basketball was complaining, and we supported basketball as well because our kids played basketball also. But the other people were complaining, the other sports, the other entities. So I can imagine now how the kids are eating and sack lunches, how boring. I'm so sorry. My kids are graduate. Thank you. And then I want to tell you that when my kids went to school, now my son is in civil engineering. Thank God, something happened. He went to Gallup High School, and he is going to be graduating from the University of Arizona come May. My daughter, Melanie Ben, is in law school. She's going to be graduating in May and will be getting her law degree. My daughter told me, she said, Mom, when I got to school, I was not ready. So I understand the sentiment. with my youngest child. I'm not a math person. We hired another Navajo person. He was really smart, Benson. And we would pick him up in the evenings, feed him, pay him, take him home. And he tutored my son with math. And now I see the formulas that my son is working with. It's amazing. So if we have something like that, 40 kids teaching each other, because I tell my kids and I tell other kids, if you have to teach it to others again, it stays in your head better. You can explain it better and you retain everything you're learning. So that's good. Now, the main reason I'm here tonight is because I remember when we're leaving Tucson, I was coming back to this area. And in Tucson, the school was going to diploma versus attendance. Okay, you can go to school. That means you went to 4 years of school. Doesn't mean you're getting a diploma. I don't know if that's happening here, but that's what was going on. The kids had to test in order to get a diploma. And thank God for teachers. I could never be a teacher, just for the very things that I'm hearing this evening. Teachers get paid very low. Teachers don't stay with the jobs. Unfortunately, the retention among teachers is low. The retention of our Native American schools and college is very low. And when I came back to the area, I put my kids at Gallup Catholic School, my 2 older kids. Eventually, I took them out. You know, I'm one of those parents that said, I wish we had vouchers. So I could decide to where I could put my child to attend school. And that's kind of sad. And also, unfortunately, finally I took them out of the public school, and the only reason is because my daughter, she said, Mom, I don't want to go here anymore. Can you please let me go to the middle school? And I did. My son, he was like really tiny, and he saw this little kid, Jason. He's a school teacher at the university. His wife, they have a lot of kids. Jason, I can't remember his last name, it just slipped me. He's a little white, blonde hair, blue eyes. My son, I picked him up at school. I could spot my son when I went to Gallup Catholic. He said, one day he told me, he said, Mom, he said, I want to look like Jason. And I said, oh my gosh, I see, what am I doing to my kids? I took my kids, I didn't put them in Gallup Public School, I took them to St. Michael's. And then when I picked them up in the evening, he said, Mom, all the kids look like me. So I was thinking, this is very confusing my child. But, you know, we should not have to decide where we should put our kids. And we should not talk about charter school, because I mentioned to Mr. Mitchell about this. And I said, you know, Patrick Mason's talking about establishing a charter school in Gallup. And then my son and I were talking about, well, what are the benefits of charter schools? And it's going back to, like, resegregation is one of the things that stuck in my head. Do we want that? Why don't we invest in our schools and do really good for our kids? And that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about and do is, if I am elected as the judge, I'm going to work on the drug court, grade court, and deal with truancy. I was involved with my kids' education. I was at the parent-teacher conferences. I was at the school checking on my kids' grades. I was reading to my kids. My kids were reading back to me to make sure that they were saying their words correctly, the vocabulary correctly. Some parents don't have that luxury or the education to do that. I will not blame schools. I just feel so sorry for the schools. Our schools are overcrowded. But then I can tell you that we had a head start. I went to the University of California, Berkeley, and my kids started going to school there in the child care program. And you have people who's pursuing their masters and their PhDs working with these kids at that school. And I wish sometimes that we had that in our community, or even the money. I didn't have money. I paid for my kids to go to Gallup Catholic for the short time that they did. I put them in the churches where they had daycare centers. And it was really tough. But no parents, if you're driven and you want really good things for your kids, you have to work really hard. And I see that happening. I see San Latsa Jim working with other Navajo kids. I stop at Twin Lakes one day, and they set up a loom. And rather, they said one of the philosophies was teaching their kids and having like family time. And they were making rugs. They set up the loom, they make the rugs. And I thought that was really good. So instead of kids sitting at their computers or playing with their laptop or their texting messages, they had quality time. And I think that is really good. And with this, what I'm proposing is that the drug court, the grade court, the truancy, I want to emphasize that, and I know we need that. Anytime my son was late for school or if he wasn't at school, I got a call from the school instantly. Say, it's now 8:30 or whatever. Your son is not in school. Where is your child? I'm sorry, parents that are saying that, no, we don't know what happened. We got access progress reports on the computers. I know we did. We had passwords for me to go check if my son is in school or what his grades are. There's so many things that can be done, and it's all in the control of parents. So I want to help you. As an elected judge, I want to go that step further. And it's wonderful to see our Native people serving on school board. And I want to be able to serve you in that capacity as a 11th Judicial District Court judge. So come November 8th, vote for me, and I will get that program, the drug court program and the grade court program, working 100% within the courts. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last public comment is going to come from Alcarnita Bellion. Oh gosh, I know I messed that up. She's not here? Okay. That concludes our public comments then. Thank you everybody for your comments. We're going to move on with our agenda. Board members, we're on 3, approval of minutes. The first one, we have A, July 18, 2016. Yes.
Madam President, I move that the July 18th be approved as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Manini. Any questions or comments?
Madam President,
Yes, sir.
there's a statement in the minutes that's of concern in terms of how we understand it, I think, and it's the statement regarding the Open Meetings Act and whether the report we received was allowable under that. And I think we probably have some different perceptions about that, but I think that Mr. Manini expressed a concern about that, but it's not clear in the minutes that this statement is expressing his concern. It's stated as a fact where we may not agree on the interpretation or application of that act. So I think it needs to be amended to indicate that. Joe, if this is expressing your opinion, that's fine. I'm not quite sure, I don't remember exactly how you said it, if this is if you really said this way. The issue is whether we can have reports from people where those reports are not already specified concretely in the agenda. We also later in the minutes have a case where Ms. Moffett was asked to present some information. We had the case where Mr. Bright was asked to present some information. They were not listed on the agendas specifically either. I think the board has the prerogative to ask for information and accept information as long as it's part of the agenda topic. And in this case, it was the topic of dual credit reports. So I think we need to, what I'm concerned about is the way it reads. And we're almost going on record as saying that we have violated the Open Meetings Act. And I don't think we did. I think we accepted the report, but there was some concern about what our protocol is when that particular report wasn't itemized on the agenda. So I think we need to see what our understanding is on this. I could move to amend the motion to delete that, but that might not be, if that was expressed, as a concern, then maybe it should still be in there. But if it was a statement of a board member, I think it should be clear that that's what it was.
Go ahead. Do you have something? So Joe, there was a, Mr. Menini, there was a question from Mr. Hideman.
I think it's in the minutes as recorded, is correct?
May I ask a follow-up? Are you saying it's a correct account of what you had stated, your concern? Is that what happened?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I think it should simply be a little clearer that, because also just the written structure here is not a paragraph that puts that together clearly as a follow-up of the statement that starts out where you oppose the report. Maybe if simply went on to say, it says, but the report was made, and then Mr. Menini's expressed concern that, according to the Open Meetings Act, then it's clear that that was your concern, not
Okay.
just a statement of fact. Does that make sense to you?
That makes sense.
I would suggest that, propose that as a,
My comment?
yeah.
Okay.
So it would read, oppose the report as it is not listed on the agenda, but the report was made. His, what do we say? His concern, or Mr. Menini's concern, was that, and then go on with what's there.
It says that I was opposed to the report and is not listed on the agenda, but the report was made.
Yeah.
So it's black and yellow for us right now.
But the next statement, I'm sorry, I don't mean to debate this, but I'm concerned about what we might put ourselves on record saying when we approve the minutes, the way they're worded. The next statement is stated as fact, and I don't think I accept it as fact. And
Yes.
according to the Open Meetings Act, formulations, so on, first of all, there is
There wasn't comment of the open meeting.
there's a period there that it's not a sentence unless grammatically it's not correct, and it's difficult because we're condensing a lot of stuff in short form in minutes, and that's not easy. But when it says, according to Open Meetings Act 3, Section 1015.1, formation of public policy, F, agenda, period, it doesn't say anything about that. Then it says, the meeting notices shall include an agenda containing a list of specific items of business to be discussed. Well, the specific item to me was dual credit reports. And so what we received from the NTU rep, I always do that, was in line with that to me. So that's the dilemma, and how, because we had different perceptions of that at the time as to whether that was okay. And I think it's fine to record that a member opposed the report and give the reasons, but when it says it was listed, the reporting from NTUE was not listed as required, that's an interpretation there that I'm not ready to approve as part of the minutes. If it's stated as
if I'm corrected, it could be very well corrected, but we didn't ask for this type of a listing for the requirements for the dual credit from NTU. He was just making a report for this item. Am I not correct in that?
The way I understood it was, we were going to be given and hear reports from the dual credit agencies that Ms. White supposedly sent out and had them to return their information. I think NTU was the only one that returned their info on dual credit and should have been given the chance to give their report. I mean, it's stated on their dual credit reports. I mean, I don't know how much clearer it needs to be.
Madam President, also,
Yes.
we had in our packet a written report from NTU, and it seemed appropriate to have a follow-up to that report rather than having it just sitting in the packet. So I think you were in order to accept the verbal report to go along with the one that was already in the packet. It was already built into the material or the information by being in the packet. That's the way I looked at it.
And yeah, I think that if superintendent wasn't going to allow reports, he should have specified on there, and it should have said written report only. It didn't say that. It said reports. So, you know, I think the reports can be given in any manner that they need to be given in, whether it's written, oral, especially if they have a written one. I think they need to follow through, because we did have questions on the written report that needed to be answered, and they were here. So, you know, that's what I took it as, is, you know, we had the written report, we had questions, and they needed to answer.
Board members, I also would like to comment on this. I feel that under that report, if there was a clarification that needed to be made, or specifically what the superintendent wanted, then that clarification should have been made. It's open when it says dual credit report. Mr. Hideman, you are correct. We did receive several documents inside our board packet, and that is a dual credit report. There was nothing else that was brought to the board except the report on dual credit. And I don't know why this is being an issue. Is it due to the person that brought the report? And I think that clarification we need to ask to the superintendent when he returns. And I don't agree with the statements either, that the way they're stated. I do have a question mark next to that for us to bring it up at tonight's meeting in these minutes. I don't think that we didn't violate anything. We can also get legal counsel to review, but I think that this is something that it said dual credit report, and that's the report that was given. So what are your wishes on this section, board members?
Madam President,
Yes.
I know we're belaboring this some. Mr. Manini, may I propose just a very specific set of wording again, and see if that would make sense to you, or if it's not acceptable?
I would like to take that paragraph out and table it until we look at the tapes, so I can see what transpired at that time. So I'd like to take that whole paragraph out and table that, Mr. Heineman.
Okay.
So board members, do you want to just take that section out, or just table the July 18th meeting minutes?
No, ma'am. I still have a motion on the floor, and then I amended it to take that paragraph out and to approve it at the next meeting as we can look at the tapes.
Any other questions or comments, board members? There's a motion on the floor to table the amendment, that paragraph under the superintendent's report dealing with dual credit. Roll call, please.
Yes. Ms. Jeff? Mr. Henneman?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
And Ms. Manuelito?
Yes. Okay, moving on to July 19th meeting minutes.
Madam President,
Yes, sir.
move approval of the minutes of July 19th.
Any comments, questions, corrections, additions to the minutes?
Madam President,
Yes.
I was looking at the July 19th board of Education minutes, and I find that with the questions that were being asked by my colleagues, some of the wording under the answers are not correct under some of the questions that were imposed to me as a candidate. If you go to my name on E, and then you go to, let's see, when Mr. Manini questioned the impact aid number 4, I had indicated that I had sponsored legislation, but on here it's being the present and saying that she will sponsor legislation. So if there's a clarification on that, and if we could change the wording there?
Has sponsored.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That's it.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Manini,
Yes.
Ms. Jeff,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Manuelito,
Yes. Thank you. Board members, we move to item 4, approval of consent agenda 6B, 6C, 6E, and 8C.
Madam President,
Mr. Manini?
I asked Ms. Hanks some questions on the current bills that I saw that was in question, and she provided the correct information that I asked, and therefore I move that the consent agenda items be approved as presented. With the budget, we have one question that Mr. Mitchell has, I believe, on the
It's the board member. Membership, yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I had talked with Giovanna on this just before the meeting, and also with Evelyn, and they explained that, these are membership dues for some Superintendent's Association, our New Mexico School Board Association, and then because our legal advertising was separate, so, but I think they answered my questions, and I'm going to get with Evelyn in the morning so she can give me a printout. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. So for that question, then I make a motion that the consent agenda items be approved.
I had a question, but Mr. Manini, the ones that you review, is that the ones that we get from on our email?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Giovanna, there was a couple of expenses that were on the big, the ones that were emailed to us by, oh gosh, what's her name?
Miss Lewis.
Yes. And two of them, one was on this last week, July 27th, for $474,000. That was the total. And then the one previous to that was $1,380. Is it because of the new school year we're getting these large amounts, or is that kind of a normal cost?
Madam President, members of the school board, members of the audience, Assistant Superintendent Hyatt. So you will be seeing large purchases. Two that Mr. Manini had actually asked about were due to funds that we negotiated at the end of last school year to carry funds over into this school year so that we can expend. Miss Yolala Gonzalez, she actually gave us, she worked with the special education department in June. Sorry. Microphone's at a really odd angle. She worked with the special education department in June and was able to request to be able to carry over funds immediately into the new school year. She provided them a detailed plan at the end of June stating what we would do in the very first part of the school year in order to expend funds. They accepted plan, and she has since been working to put that into action, and one of those is those large expenditures from Ms. Gonzalez. The other is Title II, which is Ms. Rachel Rodriguez, and again, she put together a very detailed plan in June. She took over Title II. She sent that to the Public Education Department. It was approved, and she has worked hard to put that plan into action as well. And that's to ensure that we get supplies and materials before the school year starts.
And I saw several transactions that were taking place for Reading Wonders. Is that new curriculum that we're ordering for the school district, or is that overall the school district, or just specific schools?
So I would be hesitant to answer on specific programmatic initiatives. If you like, you can always, as Mr. Manini does, email me a list of inquiries, and then what I do is actually reach out to each one of those program managers to get specific details, and then I also pull down the invoices so that whatever questions he has, I'm able to provide at the very beginning of the meeting.
Okay. I do have a couple because I saw some other inquiries that I wanted some, because there's a lot of, I'll ask you, I guess, when, I'll email it to you.
Sure, and again, it's so that I can get you detailed information.
Yeah.
And like I said, what I usually do is I'll be able to provide you both the invoice and a detailed explanation from that program manager.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam President.
Yes.
Giovanna, I have a quick question. Madam President, is there any way, I don't know if this is the opportunity to request for this, if we could get a breakdown of the budget? I'd like to see and look at the budget because I know that we had our state senator who was here and really concerned about some of the funds that were transferred for, in a Senate bill that or a House bill that he discussed. I think I would like to see a breakdown of the budget so that we could review that budget. And if we have any clarification, I would like to see if we could come back and address those issues as well.
Absolutely, not a problem.
Okay, board members.
And Madam President.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the one I saw too. Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Yes.
And Giovanna, if we can try to get that within a week, I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
What form would you like that in?
How do you have it? How is it formatted? Is it Excel? Is it okay? If you have it in Excel, can you break it down? Because I know that you can break it down through Excel and put the items that are listed on there and what's being paid for. Because I like to see how those items are broken down.
Sure. So would you like the entire string, which is a 28-digit, or would you like it rolled up to the object code?
Whatever you feel is more that would accommodate us, that would be more clear to us to understand.
Sure. Not a problem.
Thank you.
I think the packet that we got from the breakdown of the budget, that would be very helpful for you too, because we got a binder that has all the pie graphs and wonderful things Giovanna does for us to help us understand and get that clarification. I think will be really helpful.
And I can get you a copy of that this evening if you'd like it.
Sure. Thank you.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Giovanna. Did we get a motion?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, board members? Okay, we'll go ahead and roll call.
Ms. Jeff,
Yes.
Mr. Heineman,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Ms. Manuelito,
Yes. Thank you, board members. Now we're moving forward to study circle under A, report, superintendent's report. A, recognition. All yours, Mike.
Thank you, Madam President. This evening we do not have any recognition for student, staff, or other, and so we'll go on to 1B and invite Mr. Donkersloot and Mrs. Lee to discuss.
Madam President, may I interrupt just a minute?
Yes.
This won't take long, so Ron can stand up. I just got back into town shortly before the meeting, and so I missed grabbing something I wanted to bring, but let me at least mention it. This weekend, I think it was, only newspaper had a list of the Gates Millennial Scholars for this past year, and there were a significant number from Gallup McKinley high schools. And I wanted to bring the list, and that's what I wasn't able to grab on the run, because I thought we should somehow as a board congratulate and recognize those students, and I apologize for not having that with me, but perhaps we can at least mention it for the record here. I thought some of them are already probably off to campuses, I mean college this week or next week, and as far as bringing them here, that didn't seem to be feasible, but I think each one of our high schools, best I can recall, probably has at least one, and often several Gates Millennial Scholars, and that's a very significant achievement. So I want to at least mention that, and maybe we can find a way to recognize them somehow. You at least mail them a congratulations or something, if we have addresses for them, something. But it was a very good list.
Mr. Heineman, we can work on that. Maybe we can invite the parents if the students aren't able to make it and provide an award to them. So recognize them. Thank you. So I'll turn the time over to the Personnel Department for an update on human resource this time of the year.
Good evening, Madam President and board members. My name is Ron Donkersloot. I'm the Director of Personnel, and I'd like to introduce also Sandra Lee, who is Personnel Coordinator.
Good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity to discuss our work.
You have to talk into the mic.
We have to talk right into the mic.
Yep.
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear. Can you hear me? Okay. I trust that you did get the report that we sent, and so there is an agenda at the top, those top 5 items. And those are the items that we would like to just briefly present to you, and if there are any questions, feel free. The first one is just simply the main duties of the Personnel Office. Seeing that we are presenting to you, it seemed to make sense to give you a broad overview of the various responsibilities that lie within the Personnel Office. And I'm not going to go over all of those. We gave those in the report. I trust that you've had a chance to look at that, but I did want to give you a sense of some of the, just all the various responsibilities that we have.
I just asked Mike on that. I'm sorry, Mr. Duncan.
Yeah, that's right.
That was a report we got during the legislative session, the workshop we had, but Sandra will need.
We'll take care of that.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. Perhaps maybe we'll run off some copies. While those copies are being run off, they should look like Personnel Office. It's say right at the top there.
Yeah.
That looks good.
I got mine.
Okay. I'm just going to quickly highlight a few of the things that we deal with. So recruiting and hiring, obviously, we'll talk about that in a bit. Workers' comp issues come to us, licensure issues, training of substitute teachers. This morning, Sandra and I trained the returning substitutes. Verification of experience, financial documentation, mortgages, loans, all of those kinds of things. Maintaining our community volunteer list, background checks for all employees, assisting potential employees in applying online, fingerprinting for background checks, maintenance of I-9s, working with the NM Teach system in teacher evaluation, all employee evaluations, grievances, complaints, supporting principals in dealing with disciplinary issues, supporting the implementation of new programs, which we'll talk about in a minute, and then supporting all staff members in regards to personnel issues. And then we have 6 of our administrative staff that are primarily assigned to various schools or various areas of our of Gallup McKinley County schools in working with the supervisors of those various areas in all employee-related things in regards to that. So that's just a broad overview, and I actually just kind of went over that because I wanted Sandra to have time to run off some copies so that she could talk about the next thing, which is safe schools. So we're going to just talk about a couple of things that we wanted to highlight of areas that we're hoping to work on this year that we wanted to let you know about.
So Giovanna Hanks will be coming in a moment with those copies for you. As Mr. Donkler-Sloot mentioned, we're going to be introducing 2 programs into our school district this fall. The first is around safety for our students and our staff. So normally what's happened is that at school sites, school counselors have done trainings for our staff members around child abuse prevention and substance abuse prevention. Pardon me. This fall that will continue to happen. However, we'll be introducing a program called Safe Schools. It's an online training program, and we're going to be introducing 3 new training modules. One is around sexual harassment prevention. Another is around the prevention of discrimination. And the last one is on bloodborne pathogens. I will be serving as the system administrator for Gallup McKinley County Schools, so I'll be able to actually go into this online training program and tell who has received the training and who has not. And the reason why we want to do that is because we care about the safety of our staff and our students, and we also want to increase compliance around this issue. The second program that we're going to be introducing this fall is called Time Clock Plus. So Time Clock Plus is a program that we're going to roll out this fall where our classified staff will be clocking in and clocking out. And the reason why we want to do that is to increase our compliance and monitor hours for the Fair Labor Standards Act as well as the Affordable Care Act. So on August 23rd, is it? Yes. On August 23rd, we'll be doing a training for our principals and our secretaries to make sure that everybody understands how the program works. We did a training with our returning subs today, so we informed our substitute teachers that we will start rolling this program out hopefully in September or October. And we're hoping that once we know that the program is running smoothly, we'll be able to tie the time clocks into our payroll system to pay our substitute teachers and our non-contract hours.
Any questions in regards to that? Okay, I'd also like to talk about an issue that is problematic for our parent volunteers. So one of the things that we want to do is to ensure that our children are safe, and anytime somebody is in the school volunteering, that they have been appropriately vetted, that their background check has been done if they go along on a field trip as a chaperone, that they have had a background check done so that it's appropriate that they are going along. But that's problematic in the sense that they have to then come to our office to register for a background check. They have to pay $44 to get the background check done, go to the sheriff's office, have the fingerprinting done, come back to our office verifying that they've had the fingerprinting done, and then we can run that report. That is right now currently the only way we can really do that we can verify that people are cleared to go along on field trips or be volunteers, but it is cumbersome, particularly obviously for our parents that are in areas that are farther away. So one of the things that we are proposing that we would do is to use an organization called Background Investigation Bureau, who are a national It's a national organization which would allow parents to register at their various school sites. It would allow, let's say, the grandmother who would like to go along as a chaperone on a field trip the next week to go online there to register. The background check is a national background check. It still includes FBI, which is something that's crucial for us. And but the cost is considerably less. It's $16. It actually issues all of the volunteers a badge, so that they have a badge that says I'm officially recognized as a volunteer in Gallup McKinley County Schools, and that we hope will make it a lot easier for our parent volunteers to be able to participate without going through all of the rigmarole that we've been doing just to verify that they're okay to be in school buildings and going along as chaperones. So we're excited about that. We're going to be, that will be in place, we expect, in the next number of weeks. I don't think there are any field trips happening right away, but we want that to be in place so that, yeah, parent volunteers have a good way of being able to have their backgrounds done, but it's not onerous to them.
Mr. Dunkersloot?
Yes.
On your background check, Investigation Bureau, how long is that good for? Is it annually that they're going to be doing this, or?
That's a little bit up to us. We are recommending 2 years, that we do that every 2 years. That is good for 2 years, if you will. And the Background Investigation Bureau allows us a little bit of flexibility with that length of term. But that's what we're recommending.
Madam President?
Yes.
Mr. Donkersloot, I have a quick question. On these background checks, since we're doing this to these to the volunteer parents, is this also implemented as far as hiring process goes for other teachers and staff?
Yeah, good question, very good question. So for all staff members, anyone that's actually paid, so that includes substitute teachers, they do need to go through the background check that I was kind of explaining earlier. That's a background check that's really required by the Public Education Department, and so we have all of our employees go through that process. But as I explained, it was really difficult for a lot of our parent volunteers, so we wanted to find a way where we could still ensure that our volunteers are appropriately, they've had an appropriate background check, but it's easier for them to do.
And then, Madam President?
Yes.
So how much do the teachers have to pay for this?
That is a $44 charge for that background check.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam President, on that
Yes, ma'am.
topic, who's paying the $16?
That would be the parent, the chaperone, the volunteer.
Because I would think that might be worth even having the district pay that. If we're paying $16 to get parent involvement, that's not worth it. I mean, depends on what kind of funds.
Yeah,
we can use.
I would certainly not argue that at all, depending on how we can, if that's appropriate to use monies in that way, for sure, yeah.
Board members, I just wanted to say that when I attended the administrative conference a couple of weeks ago, I was thankful for the Mr. Dunkersloot and Mrs. Lee's presentation to the principals, and even the principals had a lot of questions, and I think this time clock that's coming up, I think is something that is going to be very beneficial to our district. I know it's going to take some time for the staff to get used to it, but I think it also has a lot of accountability of the staff also. And so thank you for that, for your presentation. It was very good, and I also want to say thank you for keeping for the new programs you guys are starting, especially under the School Safe Schools. I'm sorry. I also attended a conference last week on child abuse, sexual abuse, domestic violence at the Gallup High School, and I think just having that extra security within our district and having the awareness of it is something that we need to continue to do. So thank you very much for implementing that program.
Thank you.
Yes.
May I ask one more question? In some cases, with rural schools, I've been aware of situations where there isn't a lot of social life for, say, young single teachers. You have to come to Gallup for everything. That sometimes becomes a deterrent to staying long-term with the district or some districts. But on the chart here, I don't see evidence that that's a problem. I'm just wondering if what you're reading is not money support, but social support for people in the smaller school communities if they're not part of the community, or if they haven't learned how to find out what's there to take advantage of. But for instance, personal relationship would be a lack of a personal relationship. That's a small item in the chart. Relocation closer to home is a bigger one that might align with that idea, but I'm just wondering what your observation is apart from the numbers.
Yeah.
Is that something we do or need to do, or how does that work out?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And for members of the audience, we presented a pie chart to the board of just simply what are the different reasons why people have left. And Mr. Human is referring to the fact that there were some that had personal relationship or dissatisfaction, but it was a relatively small percentage. And obviously, we didn't do an interview of each individual, etc. I think there's so many different variables related to that. So let's say in the spring I was out in Crown Point just doing some investigation of some issues, and I just noted and talked with staff members there, and you could tell that a number of the staff members, they had found their community, they had found a sense of belonging, even though one could say it's a remote area, although a lovely area, I would say. So it really depends a lot on staff members being able to find community within that group of teachers, within the school. And to a large degree, a lot of that does happen, and we're delighted with that, because even though the teachers are out in distances, a number of our teachers do find community with each other and do have a sense of I belong, which is really important, obviously. Yeah.
Mr. Hinneman, we also last year on our new teacher orientation, we did some activities the second half of the day. It was very hectic, although it was a good thing to do. This year we're looking at maybe a different way of having those things organized for new staff so they can find people with the same interests. And so we will provide that to you of what's going to be happening in the near future for new teachers.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Madam President, I want to thank Mr. Donkersluth and Ms. Lee on the reporting on the staff that's also listed on page 3. And those of you that have already left, in an elementary school, 7 classroom teachers are open. 3 more are for special education. And there are 5 openings in the county of those 10, and 5 are in the city schools. As for elementary. In the middle school, there are 4 openings in town, 2 of which are in teaching and 2 of which are in special education. In the high school, there are a total of 8 openings, 5 of which are special education, and the 3 regular education positions. Of those 8, 4 are in the county, and 4 are in the city schools. And I want to thank you very much for breaking that down.
Yeah, we were intrigued with that. We wanted to know where is that. So it was rather interesting that there's a fairly even spread there. I would like to make the comment that clearly our big need is in special ed, and that's not unique to us. Albuquerque, as of last week at some point, they have something like 300 openings, and 100 of those are SPED. Now, Albuquerque is a larger school district without a doubt, but That is it's a national problem, but it's clearly also a significant issue for us here in New Mexico.
I have a question, but I don't know if it be more for Giovanna. The money that was sent, that was brought up by Mr. Munoz, is some of that money due to positions that are vacant too, that we're not filling those positions? That I know sometimes there's money set aside for those positions, but if we're not all full, what happens to those funds?
Madam President, members of the board, Assistant Superintendent Hyatt, members of the audience, what we recommend is that program managers actually look. When you write a budget, you have the intent of doing several things, and sometimes those items do not come to fruition. So what you need to do is make sure monitor your budget, and if you haven't got someone hired, amend your plan, move those funds, use them somewhere else, still look for that person. So really with programmatic funds, there should be no reason that they're being returned because we're unable to find. Typically what we see is we may have to replace a person that we intended to hire with a contracted service when you're talking about programmatic funds. Now that's not the same when we're talking operational funds because those are direct required instructors, so we're not going to go out for contracted services on those. But for others, we may choose to amend our plan to do something with a contracted agency if we're not able to hire personnel. So really, if a program manager is watching their budget and making those amendments, they can typically make those adjustments throughout the year, which is why you guys tend to see so many budget adjustments.
Thank you. Any other questions, board members?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I really didn't get an answer, or I really didn't understand your answer on that, Giovanna, because just like what Senator Munoz said, this money is not even being expended, and there's a concern because it's not being expended. I mean, you're telling us that it's the reason why it's not expended is because there's a process? Is that what you're saying?
So we have various types of funds within the school district. Several different individuals manage funds. So, for example, we may have one individual over Title I, one over special education, and that's their sole focus, is working with those funds and ensuring that they're expended under the appropriate federal guidance, but also in alignment with what the district is trying to do academically, and ensuring that those funds are spent timely to make sure that items are received in the classroom. So that program manager is essentially that key person who monitors those funds and has control over their expenditure.
So if that key person is monitoring and has control over that funding, then why isn't these money being expended if they have that control over that? Because if there's one person that's taking care of this matter, I would think that these positions would be filled because, as I recall, a year ago attending the Gallup school board meeting, there was concerns at that time too because money wasn't being expended. And then when I attended and listened through the online streaming, there was money that was reverted back. And so there is a huge concern, and I like to know why this is happening. And I think that we need those answers, and I think that the person that's dealing with those funding needs to come and clarify that and give us a report, because I like to see the outline of their report and to see what the real issues are. Thank you.
Sure.
Madam President,
Yes.
Mrs. Jeff, we're talking about different kinds of funds here, so it gets very complicated. So
I understand.
I think the question started out talking about funded positions. And there are some federal funds that pay for our funded positions. A majority of it is operational dollars. And so when we're talking about unexpended funds, usually that's going towards an educational need, not a staffing need. Our staffing needs have been taken care of. And so if a position isn't filled, we keep that money there as we continue to look for a person to fill that position. So I just want to make sure that we make sure that we talk about two different needs there and how that money is
Madam President, I just wanted to clarify that. I was just asking because, I know that Senator Munoz really had a concern because of the special the educational money. and why it wasn't being expended. And so that was the reason why I brought up, and concurred with what Madam President had to address.
Madam President?
Yes.
So I didn't catch the answer of, so if the special ed positions aren't filled, but the money's there, then what's done with the money if it's not used? Where does it go? Do we put it back into?
So are you talking, and just
The
to
special
kind of
ed- it's special-
separate
yeah,
separate
special
some
ed-
issues? So
special ed.
operational special education dollars, we typically have vacancies in our ancillary position. We do have some other special education instructor positions that are open, but we typically see vacancies in our ancillary positions, and what we have been doing is doing contracted services for those with companies through CES. So what we are doing, and actually I was having this exact conversation today, was I was working with Lolly Gonzalez and her secretary so that we could move some funds from the staffed positions we had anticipated to contracted services, because we do not have those staff members hired yet as of today. Now, with our other positions, we will continue to look at those individuals. We will continue to look for ancillary staff. Those are, as was previously stated by many of my colleagues, hard-to-staff positions. Now, I will say that the coordinators at EDC do an excellent job of ensuring that services are covered in the interim as we look for those individuals. But there is kind of a balance there, especially with those special education positions.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Lynn.
So let me state this, and then you can tell me if I got it straight. Last year, we contracted for a lot of the specialized services under SPED.
For the ancillary positions, there's a very good blend.
Yeah. So
between
if
staff and contract.
With some of those positions, if we can't fill them as regular staff positions and we contract it out, so we put it under contractual services, but it's the same dollar, is that right?
Yes, sir. And just to kind of separate this issue a little bit further, I do apologize, I'm not the best with this microphone right now. The special ed dollars that Mr. Munoz was talking about does not have anything to do with the dollars that we're talking about for ancillary staff. Right. Those are supplemental federal funds under IDEA.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions for us?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to present. Thank you very much.
We'll see you soon.
Our next reports, Madam President, School Board, we have Teach for America here to give us reports on the activity in the district in dealing with them. As a reminder, we do have an MOU, a 2-year MOU with Teach for America last year, and it also extends into this year. And so we have Mr. Alray Nelson and Mrs. Shayla Yellowhair here to present from Teach for America.
Hi.
Hi, yad Shayla Yellowhair Yinisha, Tudakuja Inishla, Nanish Ajitachitni Bashichin, Tapahai Dashite, Bibutotni Dashanella. My name is Shayla Yellowhair. I live in Fort Defiance, Arizona. I was a 2007 Teach for America Corps member. I got my degree at Amherst College in Massachusetts, and I was able to come home through Teach for America. I taught for a total of 6 years as a special education teacher. 5 of those years were at Navajo Middle School in Navajo, New Mexico. I have 3 kids, a daughter just started 2nd grade, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. Sorry, and I'm a director of the regional redesign here on Teach for America staff.
Thank you, Shayla. Yate. School board members, Representative Jeff, welcome to the board. To my good friend, Mr. Mitchell, to Ms. Manuelito, and to the rest of the board members, and to the audience, Ms. Chapo, I see you back there as an administrator from Crown Point School District. Sheya Alray Nelson and She, Tropan Shlonki Ani Bashichin, Senjikin Ada Shachero, Tachini Ada Chanel, and Le Bishpit Hode E Nasha, Quat all the Nen Shle, And I originally called Tehachapi, New Mexico home. That's where my in-laws and my partner's from. But he and I both live here in the beautiful city of Gallup, New Mexico. And I currently serve as the Director of External Partnerships for Teach for America here in New Mexico. And my job is to continue to build upon the strong relationships that our organization, our nonprofit has, not only with community leaders like yourselves, but with parents, with stakeholders, with local superintendents, whether it's from CCSD to the schools in Bernalillo and Albuquerque. And I just provided y'all a handout and a documentation of information about our region. Rather, it's our regional breakdown and names of teachers. So you know, as board members, these teachers are going to be in the school districts and the schools that's over your purview. As you can see, with 13 teachers that are going to be coming in this coming school year, we have 1 second year and 12 first-year teachers. Out of the 12 teachers in that list that you have here of them, for Mr. Mitchell, we have actually 1 teacher in Alva Elementary. For Representative Jeff, we actually have 1 in Crown Point Elementary. To Ms. Manlita, we actually have 4 teachers in Through Elementary. Mr. Menini, we actually have 2 in Davis Skeet Elementary. And to Mr. Huneman, we actually have 5 teachers, 1 at Mira High, Meyer Mira, Gallup Middle School, and another at Kennedy Middle School. And we're very proud of our teachers and the work they've doing. They just completed their 1-week orientation, which ended last week, or 2 weeks ago, in Albuquerque. But before that, they were in their intensive summer-long training at our institute held at Arizona State University in Phoenix. But out of all the teachers that you have here in GMCS, there are 4 particular core members that I would like to highlight, because one of the things that we hear from our partners, especially from GMCS, is there's money being invested to your nonprofit organization. First, how are y'all being held accountable for the work that you're doing? But second, how are you recruiting and retaining specifically Native American teachers and New Mexicans from the local area that are going to come here and stay within the state and within the community? Stephen Nez is actually going to be a kindergarten teacher at Davis Skeet Elementary. He's actually originally from Chechilca, New Mexico, and went to Gallup High School. So we're really proud that he's returning home. We brought him back through the TFA program. The other is Eli Antonio. He's going to be teaching 6th grade social studies at JFK Middle School. He's originally from Pablo Pintado, New Mexico, and went to Tsegay High School there. The other is Celeste Gilman. She's going out to Navajo Elementary, Kevin, and she's going to be teaching 5th grade. She was originally from Kayenta, Arizona, but went to Arizona State University, but decided to come here to teach in New Mexico. So that's a really good thing that we're keeping one of our own for the Navajo Nation within the area. And the other, of course, is Maya Pedersen. Maya is actually leading the SPED program at Thoreau Elementary this year, and she spent this whole summer as a TFA teacher teaching summer school. And one of the things we just heard from the personnel report recently is the lack of SPED teachers, not only in the state of New Mexico on a national level, but I think that we're very proud that we have one of our own TFA teachers within the school district leading work at an elementary school level. As we transition forward, I provided you all a fact sheet. On this fact sheet, does a brief breakdown of our teachers that are impacting schools across our state. About 86% of our teachers identify as a person of color or come from a low-income community, so they all received some form of the Pell Grant. In addition to that, we have 42 teachers total for New Mexico right now for Teach for America. 14 of our teachers this year, these are new teachers now, were the first in their families to graduate from college. In addition to that, we have around 135 alumni working in the state of New Mexico in some field of education or are in the classroom right now. So if you look at the communities that we're serving, it lists there. One of our newest partners that we have a teacher teaching at right now is the Pueblo of Santa Clara, and we're really proud of that. And then overall, we had a principal survey conducted, and this basically is a survey speaking to all our teachers who've had principals within the last couple of years, and 86% of those principals that reported back and said that they would hire a Teach of America teacher again, so really proud of that. So I'd like to just go ahead and hand it off to my colleague here, Shayla, who can share a little bit more information about our training and support system, and that's the 2 documents that's in your packets here as well.
All right, so just to go through the training and support system, all of our teachers are fully licensed in New Mexico and are highly qualified in their subject areas. About 10% of our core do come in already with their undergraduate degrees and their teaching license from either another state or from New Mexico. All of our teachers, well, not all of them, most of our teachers pursue a master's plus licensure, so they enroll in UNM or with Western New Mexico University to complete their licensure courses and then complete their master's degree, usually within 2 to 3 years. A small number of teachers each year complete the OPAL, so the online portfolio for alternative licensure. This is the same process that all teachers in New Mexico go through to get their alternative license. So the alternative licensure being the distinction from that with the going into like an undergraduate degree in education is that you don't necessarily have to have your undergraduate degree in education. You can have it in any other background, but you are able to continue taking courses to fulfill the requirements under the state of New Mexico. We are an AmeriCorps program, so that means that our teachers do receive a stipend at the end of each successful year completed, up to 2 years. That is, if they have not completed an AmeriCorps program before. We do have several people who come in each year who have done, like I think it's called City Year, or have done other AmeriCorps programs in other states and cities. This award, so one of the biggest misconceptions about Teach for America is that we are a loan forgiveness program. In fact, the stipend that is given through AmeriCorps does not forgive loans. It can be applied to past educational loans, but by being a Teach for America Corps member does not necessarily mean that all your loans are forgiven. I wish. So another thing that the AmeriCorps program can be, the stipend can be used is for ongoing educational expenses. So if they're licensure, their masters. In fact, I got my master's in special education through Western New Mexico University, and it was completely covered by the AmeriCorps program. So moving to the selection of teachers, we go through our national selection of teachers. So we follow the model that we've sort of, as Teach for America, gone through 25 years of experience, and each year sort of tweaked and adjusted based on the data that is learned and the new generations that are coming up. Specifically, we talk about millennials a lot. They're different, and so we have to adjust our program to sort of start to really meet the needs of our communities, but also to attract teachers. So our selection process has actually changed a little bit. In the past couple years, we've had a phone interview component. This year, we are getting rid of that phone interview component. Instead, we are having the initial application plus an online activity. If you get through that process, then you'll be invited to a final interview. So it's a streamlined process, and we've also been able to shorten the time frame. That from the time that they apply to the time they get word, that has been shortened so that we are more competitive in the process. So there's you all have received an article that outlines the changes in our national selection process. The acceptance rate through this process is usually below 20%, so we are still very selective nationwide. Pre-service training already did mention that our teachers at the beginning of July actually finished their 5-week training, which we call Institute. So they spend 5 weeks in Tempe with other Corps members from South Dakota and Hawaii, and they work in various communities across the valley. This year we were fortunate enough to cultivate relationships with the Gila River tribes, and so we had all of our Corps members at 2 schools in Skyline and also in Sackatone Elementary. So our teachers have already come in with the additional preparation of having worked in a Native community, knowing that obviously there's lots of nuances and lots of cultural differences between our tribes. There was a sort of, we felt the need that our teachers did actually need to know a lot of those sort of prerequisites, if you will. So during these 5 weeks, it's really an intensive, rigorous process where they're given sort of a boot camp style teaching. And if you have specific questions, I'm more than willing to answer. As far as the ongoing support and development, we have people that are dedicated to solely supporting them in the classroom during their first 2 years. So these people we called Managed Teacher Leadership Development, so MTLDs. These people, and also we have 2 people that are directly responsible for ongoing coaching, and myself and another person, we take a smaller cohort of teachers. So I actually have 2 teachers in Navajo that I'll be supporting throughout this first year, going in, doing observations every week to 2 weeks, providing feedback, working on learning plans to adjust the way their instructional strategies to adjust student learning, all based on what we're seeing in the classroom in real time. This year, one different thing is that we're going to have 6 mentors dedicated solely to GMCS. These are teachers that are alumni or in the schools currently and are employed by Gallup McKinley County Schools. So they will all be matched one-on-one, each one of our teachers that we're placing this year. Aside from that, we also have weekend trainings. We have several throughout the year. We have this week, in fact, every day we have lesson planning clinics, management clinics, and investment clinics where we are supporting our teachers to be ready for first day of school as much as possible. The last page is just sort of what we believe as far as the culturally responsive pedagogies. We follow, or not follow, we use and believe in culturally responsive pedagogy specifically by Dr. Gloria Ladson-Billings and amongst other Native scholars, basically trying to prepare our teachers to think how can they prepare and teach students to say these 3 things. Our students need to be able to say, I'm smart, so we have the academic rigor. They need to be able to say, I'm cool, right? I can go into different settings. I can be home, I can be in Albuquerque, I can be in Gallup, and I know how to work these different systems. And I have fundamental questions about the systems that are going on. So we're building that socio-political consciousness. So those are the 3 components of culturally responsive teaching that we infuse into almost all of our professional development.
So just to conclude everything, board members, I want to transition towards the last segment that's really important, and it has always been a point of interest, and most boards that we work with, like from CCSD, has talked about our recruitment strategy and how do we go forward and recruit more local people from the Four Corners region, and how do we retain them within the state so they stay in these schools consistently. Right now, just to give you an example, I provided y'all an application deadline, so you have that information there. So this lets you know that there are several deadlines for us to meet a certain quota of recruitment. And when I first came to this organization last year in this position, I had no idea what TFA was about. I came in as an outside community member, saying that I want to help teachers, I want to help students, and impact on that local level. So when I got into this position, one of the things that I first noticed, which my position is newly created, is that I felt that we weren't doing our part in recruiting locally and going to local schools like Diné College, San Juan College in Farmington, or NTU, or even local places like Santa Fe Community College, Fort Lewis College, where there's a large Native population or a large New Mexico student population. And so this year, and since I've started this job, like our staff has consistently worked towards one goal, and this is the same goal this coming year, and that's to ensure that half of our teachers coming in next year identify as Native American, and within that same number, a good majority of our teachers coming back to New Mexico are from the area of the Four Corners region. I think Celeste is a great example of that because she came from Kayenta, went to a local school in Arizona. We recruited her there, and she wanted to come to New Mexico to stay closer to home, but also be a little far away so she could live that experience here in New Mexico. There are 2 alumni that have been in this school district impacting students' lives for several years now. One is Leslie Shenek. In 2006, she taught English for 5 years at Crown Point High School. And she moved back to Santa Fe after this 5 years. But she's actually coming back this school year to teach again at Crown Point High School. We also have Amit Pende. In 2011, he taught at Tahatchee and Gallup Middle School. He went back for his master's degree to get in public health at the University of Arizona. And he's coming back to teach at Gallup High School, or Gallup Middle School this year. So I think that's just a really cool, clear example of like, I know and I understand that there's more work that we can do in terms of how we're going to invest towards recruitment for more people in New Mexico. It's been an uphill battle, and that's what I've noticed my first year in this job. And you're seeing that for all recruiters across the nation that are trying to identify new teachers for their schools, and I'm sure you all are very well aware of that. But we're going to continue to work hard, and I've committed myself to this organization. And so this year you're going to see Teach for America recruiting locally. You're going to see us, like last year we were at the Navajo Nation Fair. This year we're going to do more than that. You're going to see us at Fort Lodge College campus. We're already teaming out people at NAU, ASU, U of A. Susan Estrada was a teacher. I'm not sure if many of you know who her name is, but she was a teacher at Juan Gallante, and she taught at that school. And she just finished off her second year last year. We just hired her on as part of our new national recruitment team, and her focus is to recruit more local New Mexicans back to this area in New Mexico. And she's based out of UNM, and she's out of Albuquerque now. But I think that's cool that you have someone, a teacher, who identifies as native from Arizona, as a Native American from Arizona, is now part of our national recruitment team that's going to recruit teachers to come back to Native communities here in the school district. That's what I want to share with y'all. I want to open up for questions if there are any. But we're definitely looking forward to the future and working together and rebuilding a stronger bridge with the school board. Thank you.
Madam President?
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Manini.
I'd like to thank you very much for your report. It comes right to my heart that you are recruiting Native American to be in the Indian capital of the world. I appreciate that very much. I know this is a 2-year program, and I hope we can extend that further along in our district. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lynn?
Yes, thank you for the report. I want to say that I've had a number of contacts with Teach for America teachers and staff over the years, and it's always been a positive impression and experience. The people come out of cut from a different cloth sometimes, I think, in terms of that pattern of already having a content degree and then deciding they want to teach as well. And I think that's worked well. Excuse me. I have a question about the culturally responsive pedagogy model, and I want to know if you think it's working for your people. How do you know if it's working, and are they getting support for that model in the schools they're working in?
That's a great question. I would say that culturally responsive teaching, while I gave you like the specific pillars that we work through, culturally responsive teaching and pedagogies are more like a lens that you have to look through at the world. And so it is our belief and, quite frankly, our responsibility that we build that lens and we help to support our teachers to develop that lens so that they can look at any curriculum and see, okay, these are the possibilities for my students, because I know the community, I know parents, I know who I can bring into my classroom, I know how I can take my classroom out into the community, right? So when I think about Tahatchee and I think about the opportunities for improving roads, how are we connecting students to advocate for themselves? How are we building in skills both in public speaking? How are we building in engineering things so that we can also keep the high level of academic rigor, right? Because we don't, what a lot of people say is, well, if you bring in culture, that means that you lower expectations. Like that is wrong, and that is ridiculous. And so one of the things that I think we're trying to, not necessarily prove, but our big bet is that by developing our teachers orientations, both mindsets, beliefs, just through not only love of their students and their communities, but through their high critical thinking skills. We've selected these people for a reason. And so knowing that they've gone through this process, our highly selective Teach for America process, but also here in Region, we hold a high bar. These teachers, our teachers, are coming in to teach my baby. And I will not let anybody take that responsibility for granted. And so a part of what my role on the team as a mother, but also as a former educator, culturally responsive teaching is a no-brainer. You know what I mean? And as far as data for whether or not this is helping, I don't have anything specific to like academic or achievement scores, but I will say that the students in, for example, in various communities. So part of what my role is on staff is to find partnerships in different communities and help to support what their vision of education is. So for example, we have several communities where students want more after-school programs, and they want more things that are geared towards science and engineering. Well, one of our value adds and one of the things that we can bring to the table, part of this culturally responsive teaching, is to get our teachers out into the community to find who they can bring in and to help leverage their relationships with their students, and to hopefully, you know, like find connections. So no academic data yet, but I will say that our students need to be first, and the curriculum goes around that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Let me just mention part of what's behind that question.
Yeah.
Not too many years ago yet, the Neck College, with its graduates in education who were so fully trained and oriented to using Navajo language and culture in their own classrooms, when they got into the schools, a lot of times they didn't find the support from the principals because principals weren't on that mode yet. Hopefully in this district we're more tuned in or becoming more tuned in. But they experienced some frustration and some blocks then when they wanted to use and the Neck College hasn't always been called culturally responsive pedagogy, but it's been called Navajo content, and infusing that into the content and into the methods, and so hopefully they're getting reception and support in trying that approach. Yeah.
And I would say that a part of our partnership is your support as a board to help challenge principles to support culturally responsive pedagogies, whether it's from us, because quite frankly, Teach for America is not the end-all be-all. There are lots of community people, lots of community leaders in our students that know more than we do. And so our job is to recognize those bright spots and to support them. And then the last thing that I would say is, I just lost it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
Thank you. Just want to thank both of you for your, your support, for our children, and for giving us a breakdown. And I know that I've always supported Teach for America, even as a former state representative. And I know that we wanted to increase funding under the Indian education, and I'm really proud that you guys have been awarded, through the grant for Indian education, and I wish that we could put more funding into that, because that is what we need, is a role model, for the district, because it is so needed for, and I'm not just going to say our Native American students, but we still, we have some Hispanics, we have Mexican students, and some of them are very bilingual. And I think that, as I see within this district, it's hurting our children, because I really feel that we really need to implement, the culture and the language, and I have always said that I supported that. And I think that with this MOU, this agreement, I wish we could go more in depth as to try to seek more grants, to really implement this and to really work with Teach for America. And to even work with the Indian education, with the committee, because, even some of the money that was reverted back, I think that we could have really tapped into that as well and utilized Teach for America. So, I really commend both of you. Both of you are so young and so determined. And so it really makes me proud, to sit here and to see that, you're out there trying to recruit. And I wish it wasn't 2 years. I wish it was more than 2 years, because, we also have another program. And I think that Teach for America would be the ultimate, goal to really work with your program. So thank you.
Thank you for that. I think one of our, just to go back to the 2-year commitment, another one of our big bets is that if we can get our people to really see the greatness of this area, the history, and appreciate the diversity of our communities, because you're right, it's not only Navajo students. We have 19 different pueblos. We have lots of different people from different backgrounds. And so if we can start to bridge the gaps, because we do work in a majority of our rural communities. And so when we heard earlier about the, what about the social support, if we could just have a dating app of, no, I'm just kidding. But if we could get our teachers to fall in love with the area and have in-laws somehow, I think we would be more successful in keeping our people.
Madam Chair, yeah, I'm one of those.
No, I'd like to add that to the members of the board and to the administration here and to Associate Superintendent Hyatt. One of the things I consistently hear out there from our own teachers, whether it's in Albuquerque or whether it's out in Crownport or Palo Pintado or CCSD in Kirtland, most of our teachers that actually decided to leave after their 2 years left because the principals and administrations in some of these schools basically were like, well, it's your 2 years up now, like, what are you going to do? Without the approach of like, okay, we want you to stay here and you're investing here, we want you to be here. That was the approach when our teachers decided to stay here longer. That was the approach that administrators took with them. They knew as teachers they were valued in the community, and they were supported by superintendents and by principals in the school board that said, we want you to stay here. By that simple word of them saying that, a lot of our teachers did stay here. So I think that's just another thing I want to add to the pot here.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes.
I just want to thank you guys for this report. It's been a while since we've heard from Teach from America. I can't even remember the last person that was here.
Was Nate? Yeah, a year ago.
No, before him. I don't remember who it was, but he was advocating very hard at that time too. And then after he left, then I guess it was Nate. But I never really heard too much from him. But with this report that you guys have given us, it's really good. And I think that I would like to hear more and learn more, and try to work with you guys in helping us fill our teacher openings and keeping them here. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, real quick,
Yes.
You touched on a good subject that I wanted to kind of highlight is you went to the Eastern Agency Fair, and I truly admire your commitment in really putting that out there. And I know that there were some complaints from the parents that also said, why aren't we, putting this school and put it on a pedestal and put the stars out there? And I really commend you for that, that effort to do that outreach. And I think that that's one thing that we need to also improve. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Madam President, I'd like to make a couple comments. Also, first of all, I want to say thank you for your presentation. I think I agree with Mrs. Jeff. I'm impressed by the both of you and your commitment to the students in this area. A couple things I'd like to put out there. You mentioned recruiting, and it'd be nice, maybe we could get together with our personnel department and talk about ways in which you can not only recruit at the college level, but maybe have you start introducing yourselves and the opportunities you provide to our students in high school. Because I have found that the sooner we reach students and teach them about this career of education, the better success we have at growing our own. And we need to do a better job at that as a district, and I'm sure that you can be willing to help us. Also, in addition, we also provide a mentoring opportunity for our teachers, and I'd hate to, sometimes I found with Teach for America applicants and people that teach for us, we're opposing each other with some of our mentoring programs. And so, again, I would want to invite you, maybe we can set up a time to talk about the mentoring opportunities that we provide and some that you provide, and maybe we can do some overlap so that we're not overwhelming our new teachers. And then the last question, you didn't mention where Maya Peterson was from. Where was she from?
She's actually from New York.
From New York.
Yeah, so
Okay.
she's a second-year teacher, but taking over the special education program.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and just to comment, we have, Ari and I do a lot of the local recruitment stuff, and we are able to connect with a lot of high school students in other districts, neighboring districts, and we've gotten a lot of good response. So if there are any high schools that are having career fairs, we would love to come and talk to them.
That'd be great.
Because a lot of our athletes actually are the main ones who are going after scholarships, and they are looking for something to come back. A lot of our kids want to come back, but there's no opportunities.
Right.
And so we want to propose that teaching in your community is actually, it's a high standard to be able to do that. So yeah, and then finally the mentoring things. A lot of the mentors are actually at the same schools, and so I'd love to have a further conversation. So for example, at David Skeet, Ann Morrison is going to be the mentor for our two teachers there, and so I'm sure she's also going to be the district mentor because she's the IC there.
Yeah, we also do some group presentations, and we get teachers together to do some presentations and discuss different things throughout the year. And that's another area I thought maybe we could touch base on.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some opportunities or resources you can bring to us to help us
Definitely.
And work together. So
Yep.
thank you again.
Yep.
Appreciate the changes that are being made.
Thank you very much for this presentation. You know, this Teach for America is something that I wanted to put on this agenda for quite some time now. And the conversation started due to some funding that I think the one that Mrs. Jeff is talking about that was set aside from Indian Education. I think it was $400,000. I don't know if you guys heard or looked at the last board meeting where our superintendent was talking about, getting some of that funding from Teach for America to put into our Indian education areas. And I think that's one thing that at different times I talked about, because I understand through different channels that I've worked with, even my own personal job through the community center. Ms. Juliana Coe is the founder of the community center to help our children with suicide prevention, which is a Teach for America teacher in the past. And we've always implemented different programs to help on cultural awareness for the Teach for Americas at the community center. And I think that's where I understand, and I talk to the teachers that come in and tell them about the cultural awareness, but then also they bring a part, like what Mr. Hideman said earlier, a part of themselves to our community and to our children. And they teach our children that there is another world out there beyond the reservation, and they can reach those areas. And, they bring their life to our children. They bring them pictures. They bring them the city life, the ocean. They bring these to our children, and it gives our children hope to go see those places, that they can reach those opportunities themselves. And I think that's what I really appreciate about that. But I think the last time I talked to Nate, he was telling me that they were implementing this new and recruiting more local Native Americans within our area because they're already invested here. And the 2 years that they have, with Teach for America, with recruitment of a Native American local person, they're not going to go anywhere. They have a home here, they have children here. But the Navajo saying, and I think that's where you can see it's a positive already. And I think with what you guys are doing right now, thank you for that. And our Assistant Superintendent Mike, I'm glad you guys are going to make that connection so we can open those doors up for our Native American teachers that really need these to help our children also and bring them what they call grow our own, in a way. So thank you very much.
I would say too that we have, as far as Alri and I being from the area, Teach for America or not, we are here. And so being a part of that model of like, it is possible to come home and live here and have a job and be successful in that. And so thank you for that. And finally, the last thing I'll say is this past semester, we have spent many hours and days in various communities talking to about 160 community members, including students, leaders of the communities, elders, and we have those conversations, that data, and we are using that to make our decisions for what communities want and how we are changing our support structure and professional development. So a lot of the time, Teach for America is seen as a national white organization or a national organization from outside. We are trying to ensure that we are community-based and listening to our community first, asking for permission to be here, and to make sure that those decisions that we are making are aligning with the community. And we also recognize that there are missteps along the way, but we are here to learn, grow, and partner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Manuelito, and to all the board members here. I look forward to any lunches or dinners ahead from here and working with y'all as we continue to build a better relationship between Teach for America and our staff and with the school board and with the superintendent and to yourself, Mr. Hyatt. My really good friend, Dan Carlson, he is an amazing teacher. He works on the staff in the Hawaii region. And he said to Shayla and I and other Native teachers within TFA that he doesn't look at Teach for America. He sees it as teach for home. And I think that says a lot for someone that's indigenous to this community of how we're not teaching for America, we're teaching for home. So I like to end it on that spot. So thank you for all the opportunity.
Thank you.
Oh,
Moving along, number 1D. I believe that Dr. White has some comments about this. I'm not putting her on the spot, but Mr. Gepetti mentioned that she had some things to discuss on this item, and I think it's a discussion item also. So.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam President. I believe Mr. Gepetti has sent over our meeting notes dated on July 21st, 2016. We have 3 pots of money that we're going to be working with, and one of them is celebrating diversity, and we're looking at honoring all cultures, all folks within our school district. So we've got some plans, some ideas, and we'll be meeting again to finalize that. We also have another pot of money. Oh yes, by the Celebrating Diversity, Ms. Moffitt's going to be overseeing that particular project. For cultural training, that's some more money there, and that will be overseen by Ms. Livers. And on the cultural training is basically Navajo language and culture specific, whereas Celebrating Diversity is a more inclusive focus. And then the last one is looking at cultural competence and sensitivity training for all staff. And that's not just Native American, but we're going to be addressing bullying, racism, LGBTQ kids, mental health, etc. So it's more inclusive as far as cultural sensitivity and cultural competence. Do you have any questions?
Madam.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. I was the one that put this on the agenda, and I want to just mention to the board members, the protocol was perhaps not quite proper. I asked this to be part of the superintendent's report, and then I was thinking, well, it's really not my job to put things into the superintendent's report. but so it got listed in this way as for discussion. But I just wanted to know concretely, since we did reaffirm the agreement on the Diné content standards and integrating Navajo and Indian studies into all the subject areas at all grade levels, I'm just wondering, what's the plan? And this shows, I think, part of it. I'm not sure it's 100% in the sense of, or maybe, because it's just a summary, I'm still looking to know just how are all the teachers going to know that they're expected to do this. That's one of my foundation questions, since it's a board policy and it's meant to be mandatory for everybody on the Navajo side. And then, of course, the question comes up, we all have our own identities and they're all valuable, and we don't want to, the point is not to neglect the self-understanding of all students and so on, but the specific policy was connected with the Diné content standards, and wondering how teachers are going to get the information of the expectations and the support. And I think some of that's indicated in this list. It's just such a summary list. I'm not sure in terms of fleshing it out how that's going to be done.
Mr. Hedman, thank you for your question. As far as the details of how that's going to be done, that's going to be at each site level. During last week's administrative conference, we had a breakout session where we did share the new the net content standards policy with all administrators and principals and assistant principals that were there, and we reviewed the 6 focus areas that they need to be going with. We also shared with them our Navajo language and culture program focus areas, our goals, and what we're going to be doing. So based on that, with that, they're going to be the ones implementing. The Navajo language and culture coaches will be helping, as well as Ms. Slivers and myself. If any of the principals have questions on the details, we told the principals that their Navajo language and culture teacher is their resident expert as far as integration of cultural knowledge, and if they need additional help, we are here to help. So
I think that's good as far as, I guess my concern when we do site-based approach to that is this is a huge thing we're putting on teachers. It's a big thing. And so I wouldn't assume, no matter how much knowledge is there, that each school site has the whole battery of knowledge to share internally without also sharing across the district and without bringing people in. I just pick third grade science. Who knows what are the Navajo elements that fit third grade science, and how do we do that again in terms of scope and sequence kind of thing. So what is the teacher doing in second grade science? It's got a Navajo connection. What's then the third grade teacher doing? And with all the subjects, I think it's a huge thing. I don't expect it to happen overnight, never have. But I think for principals to work with their staff on it, that part, that's all good. I just think it's going to take a lot of resources and sharing outside and beyond just the site-based approach, to supplement it and to support it, not to exclude it, but in addition to it.
I understand this is a huge undertaking. The first step we already did with a walkthrough format. We have a new walkthrough form where when principals and assistants and instructional coaches do walkthroughs, there is a part where they will be checking to see if they're using culturally relevant materials. So that's step 1 of the entire process. And since school hasn't started, we haven't monitored to see if this is actually happening or not. That's the next step.
Okay.
Madam President, I believe that at one of the last meetings, we did ask for, I did ask for, to see an actual written plan of how this is going to take place and how it's going to work and what your expectations are for it. Do you have the plan as of yet, or?
We are meeting because we have an MOA in place with Navajo Nation. We have to work with them, and we have a meeting set for Friday to discuss that with Navajo Nation. Not only the draft that you have that was emailed to you, but also on our Navajo language and culture expectations for the year. So we need their input as well on what we need to be doing and making sure that we're collaborating with them. So, and that's based on the MOA that we have in place.
So, Mrs. White, the plan that you're talking about is the one that you emailed on July 21st?
That's part of it, yes. The other part are the goals and expectations for the Navajo Language and Culture Program for next year.
What day did you email that one?
Those were, I don't believe they were emailed. They were part of the handouts when we did the Navajo, the sessions. And I have a copy, and I can make more copies and give them to you after we're done.
I think that's what we're all looking for is the focus area. You mentioned the 6 focus areas and the goals. I would really like to look at that. I do have the one that you sent with the amounts of the celebrating diversity, cultural training, and I just think that I'll just tell you my concern is that, you know, with the school year ready, begin next week, you know, how are they going to do this, and how is it structured? And at the New Mexico School Board Association, and they brought in individuals during our conference to talk about the Indian education, and they brought in Latifah Phillips and some other people that gave a wonderful presentation to the New Mexico School Board Association. And one thing she told them at that point was how some school districts don't have to worry, I guess, so much, but about Indian education and implementing different curriculums. But with our huge vast of Native American students in our area, you know, in the Pueblos and Zuni and, you know, different areas that have more Native Americans, she told them, you know, you don't need a green light. You don't have to wait for our curriculum. You don't have to, you know, just, you guys can implement this program, implement different ways, be creative, and implement more culturally relevant material. And she told me, you guys don't have to wait for us. You know, and I think that's the census that I kind of got when I sat in your presentation, was the principals are waiting for a plan to say, okay, do it like this, which to me, it doesn't even seem like you really have to wait for something. If there have already been, especially for seasoned teachers that have been here, they know our culture, they know, I mean, principals that know our culture, and, you know, they can implement things already. And, you know, I think Frank's mentioned a couple of times, read about the Navajo Code Talkers in the history section. You know, talk about the Holocaust that happened to our Native American people. You know, not just the Jewish Holocaust. And those are just small examples that teachers can implement without a curriculum yet. You know, they don't have to have that yet. But I think that the principals are waiting for something to say, okay, go ahead and start. And they have, like you said, they do have that resource at the school level with culture teachers, and then also with both of you. But I think, as mentioned, the MOU and the plan that you guys have, we do need something structured like that. But I think it could be done already too. And these guys are a wonderful resource. They told the principals, or the board at New Mexico State and Taos, that they're open to help. You know, all they need to do is make the contact, and they were very resourceful and gave a lot of good information out to the school board members there. So,
Madam President, one of the main reasons I was asking about the plan was because of just what Priscilla mentioned. You know, a lot of these principals are at their schools and they're like, well, we're going to start this, but we don't know how we're going to start it. We haven't been told. And then for us, I know at Tohatchee Elementary for kindergarten, you guys are wanting to start. What program was that you were going to start? Was it
the dual language?
The dual language. And a lot of the parents are enrolling their children. They don't know that that there's even a dual language program. You know, I don't think we reached out to our chapters. We didn't reach out to our communities to let them know that you guys will have this option if you want to have your child attend dual language or, regular classroom teaching. Nobody was aware, nobody was educated on any of that, so I know that there's probably not even any students being enrolled into the dual language program.
Madam President?
Yes.
I do have to commend my colleagues, and I do agree with my colleague, Mr. Hennerman. This year is a huge task. I mean, there is so much on this, and I'm really concerned about this because I really think you need to come up with a model and break it down, and you need to come up with an organizational chart, because to me, I see this and I feel like it's all over the place, and there's really nothing in concrete. And I do agree with our Madam President here, because as Native Americans, you're Native American, and I would think that as Native Americans, we tend to visualize, we see things, and that's how our children learn. Our Native American students, they visualize. You show it to them, and then you go through the process with them. And so, these are, information that that is so valuable to help our students, our Native American students. And I think the visibility is really the key to help in the communication with our children, and to also really work hand in hand with the Indian education members, because they're there at these schools. They have hands-on, they understand, and I think if there's that collaboration and working with the parents, I think that this this program could work. But I've been here a year ago, sat in a board meeting. We had our former individual that worked for the Indian education, and it seemed like nothing had transpired from then to now. And so it seemed like we're still lacking. And I feel that when is this going to finally be implemented? When is this finally going to be a priority? Because school is around the corner. And to have something like this with so much that you have on here is a concern. And I'm really concerned about it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam?
Yes. Yes,
This is maybe getting into specifics that may or may not be appropriate at the moment, but just as an example, I jotted down PE, not my field, wasn't my subject. Well, what do you do with Navajo and Indian connections in PE? So I wrote down Jim Thorpe, somebody to know about, sports. Lacrosse, famous game that wasn't a Navajo game, but it's certainly a Native American game that's still done. Running itself has certain meaning and value in Navajo and Hopi and so on. Billy Mills, another famous Native American athlete. The North American Indigenous Games, big event that the dominant society doesn't pay much attention to, but it includes a lot of elements. Dance is certainly important. Now, in Navajo terms, we have things we call song and dance, which is sort of the social form of what really comes from a ceremony. But dance is the form of PE traditionally, right? I mean, that's the physical activity, one form. So I'm saying, okay, there's a PE teacher out there, and they might have come up with ideas I haven't even thought of listing here. But that sharing process, because so what happens, one teacher thinks of this one and that one thinks of that one. That's where I think collecting all those ideas and putting them into some form, and in some cases there's not necessarily an automatic sequence, but that's where I'm looking, how do we really flesh this out? And I think we need to, more heads are better than one in this, and come up with additional ideas. And I just think it's exciting when you start trying to think of generate all the possibilities. There's a lot of knowledge and a lot of content there. And then one other kind of thought, and that's when it comes to local knowledge. How many people, including our Navajo kids and other Indian kids and kids who grew up in this area, think of Buffalo having been around the Southwest, as opposed to just always being on, if you think of Buffalo as on the plains from Oklahoma all the way up to Canada. And yet over here we have Buffalo Springs, Iambitro, right? And look at Chukai, where they built the Catholic Church, was supposedly built, put where it was because there was a buffalo wallow there that was considered a sacred spot because of the buffalo, and so they put the church there. So there's all kinds of knowledge to be, enrich our thinking and our awareness in all of this. So I wish us well in it.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Really quick. Just like my son, first time he made a pottery, he's good at it. And, we told him, continue on with that pottery. And then he can draw. But with that visualization, he implements that with his schoolwork. And so that's what helps him. And he's, though he's part Native American, part Navajo, and part Hispanic, that's how, he visualizes and he uses that tool. So, I do agree with my colleague here. So thank you.
Madam President, if I can make a quick comment.
Yes.
I know this looks like a lot. Some of this has already been implemented, and these are some big tasks. But again, we have to have a global starting point. You're right. It is not difficult to incorporate culture in the classroom. We have a lot of teachers that are nervous about it, though. People that are from the area that have been here a while, it's not as difficult for them to understand what literature is out there that they can incorporate in their English course, or what science projects or project-based learning, different, whether English and science get together and work on some different project-based learning. It's just that we also know that there has to be an expectation, which we are setting. Also, there has to be accountability, which we're trying to do through the walkthrough form to make sure that people are held accountable. But also, there's embedded in this training so that we are making sure we bring dollars towards training people who don't feel comfortable and giving them those ideas that Mr. Heinemann and Madam President have talked about to make sure that does get incorporated into the curriculum. It doesn't have to be formal to start out with. We can do that as we go, but it takes practice, and it takes ideas and people getting together to learn how to incorporate those different cultural activities and learning opportunities for students. And so this is a big task. We can't do it within a month or 2 months or 3 months. It's going to take years to do it really, really well. But there are things that we're trying to do now to make sure that we're implementing at this point in this part of the, we're not going to have a perfect plan together that lays everything out perfectly. But again, we are working towards that, and we are putting the dollars towards that and the training towards that to make it happen. So.
Madam President, I just want to say that, I hope that what Mr. Hyatt just said is going to do what needs to be done. I've been hearing the same old for the past 4 years now, and still we're at square one here. So, at the first step, and we've been there for 4 years, and I haven't seen our program go anywhere. We try things and it fails and we stop. I think that I'm really hoping that what you guys are going to do now and what we're trying to do and adding more monies into the program and trying to work with our teachers, and I really hope that within the school year I see something, and that's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one last comment. What you have there is just brainstorming ideas. This is by no means a formal plan that you're asking for. That formal plan will evolve from our consultation with Navajo Tribe, which is going to be set on Friday. You're welcome to come in and sit in on those sessions if you want, 8:30 Friday morning, if you want to put in your 2 cents or more than that. So we're open to suggestions. Again, it's 8:30 Friday morning. We're meeting with Navajo Nation and sharing with them. These are our brainstorming ideas. What do you want us to do? And again, it goes back to the MOA that's currently in place. Otherwise, we'd be running and rolling with what we think is right. Friday, here, in here, at 8:30.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I think maybe for the board members that might not be able to make it on Friday, maybe in a couple of months, and then after the school year starts, you can give us another update on how the implementation's going, and I think, Ms. White, or Dr. White, I think we also as a board need to hear the struggles or the how would you say it? The challenges that you may be having. I know, I don't want you to come and say, oh, everything's perfect, everything's nice, everything's going great. We want to hear also how can we improve things that may not be working, or maybe there's another avenue. I don't know, but just, I think that's what I know, as we told our superintendent before, we know everything in our district's not perfect. We know that. And I'm so thankful when he started communicating in the board communication of some concerns, or what does he put at the end, challenges? I think he puts at the end of his reports now, which is helpful that we know there's some issues that we need to continue to work on. So, thank you.
I just also want to say, I think that, with trying to get this program together too, I think, we need to really use our IEC parents. I know that they attend a great many trainings, and I think that they should be able to assist in some way from all the trainings that they've been through.
And then, Madam Chair, lastly, I just wanted to get back to the Assistant Superintendent, that this has been a challenge. Everything is a challenge, and I think that the one district that has really worked to instill the language and the culture was Central Consolidated School. And they have a really good program. So I don't understand really what the struggle is with our district as far as trying to implement this, when you see Central really pushing for culture and language, and they have their own curriculum. So, I really think that the excuses needs to stop, and I think that we need to figure out how we're going to bridge this and how we're going to put this out, because right now, the way I see it, it's not a priority. It doesn't seem like it's a priority, and we have to make this a priority, because we have over 76, 78% Native American students that attend this district. And so we need to figure out how we're going to bring forth and helping these Native American students to implement that. So thank you.
Well stated, Mrs. Jeff. Thank you. I think also with there's a thing that I posted on my Facebook account on bilingual education, and I think that really helped me to see, how having a bilingual child and teaching your children bilingual helps their mind and their spiritual growth, and you're just helping them overall be bilingual. So I think that's something that we all need to look at sometime. Thank you very much. Mr. Hyatt?
Last item is, I believe Mr. Hinman also wanted to bring to the table a discussion about banning energy drinks in the schools. And I believe that there is policy already in place for that was implemented by the board or adopted by the board this last year, but there may be other discussion that needs to take place.
Yeah. Again, all I was looking for there is to be sure, because sometimes we can pass a policy and the Wellness Committee has the same concern that I've heard in their discussions. They can come up with recommendations, ideas, whatever, and then to follow up and see if it's really happening. And so it's a real simple question, but just, at one level, and that is, how are we making sure that the policy is being enacted this year in terms of the ban on energy drinks? But the other part of it was, when we had the discussions at that time, one of the thoughts and concerns was that students understand why the policy is there. Because for some of them it's going to just be, you can't have that. Why not? I mean, I'm used to it. I get my energy drink. Why is the school putting another no on me? And so, just what's being done to give the rationale in terms of health and the increasing number of incidents where people are experiencing serious, even heart attacks from too many energy drinks. We know it's happening. so that the kids realize it's out of concern for their health, not just put a rule saying no. And just being sure that we're implementing it. That's just wondering how that's being communicated, I guess, is transmitted to and through the principals, essentially.
Madam President?
Yes.
Mr. Huneman, the food service program has set guidelines for vendors, and that is an outlawed item of energy drinks in the vending machines and on the school campuses. So we're very aware of what's going on, and they've set goals and they've come up with policies to minimize this energy drink item. Thank you.
And I say that's good, but in addition, kids can't bring it on their own either under the policy. So.
Is it teachers? Teachers and staff.
See,
we can, Mr. Hinneman, we can provide some information about what's happened this year, and my first thoughts are is to ensure that those things are being taught in our health classes, upper level and middle school levels, and making sure that it's at least a part of our curriculum in some respects. And also, we can probably pull some data to see how many incidents there have been this year where energy drinks have been involved. We can provide for the board. But any other suggestions you have, we can definitely look at ways in which we can educate and also monitor that activity.
If I may, I'm thinking the information we got last year was that most of the schools were essentially already having this policy on their own,
right.
But maybe not 100%. Plus, we get new kids coming into the school, and they might have come from a school where it wasn't a rule, and they're not really even going to be aware of it until they're really,
We can do a push out to principals to make sure that they're enforcing that new policy.
And I think the comment that we're hearing, I think it needs to be reinforced, it needs to be reinforced too with our staff, because, it doesn't make sense if staff is drinking it and the kids are not allowed to. Even with smoking, if they're going to be smoking on campus, what's preventing the kids from, it's kind of, they need to be our role models for our children also, so I think that's a very big concern. I know they're their own person and, they're adults, but, they have to be our role models for our children also. Mr. Hyatt, Astrosh, done?
We are complete.
Okay. Board report, Mr. Menini?
Thank you, Madam President.
Yes.
Since our last board meeting 2 weeks ago, I attended the special meeting in Crown Point where we elected or appointed our new board member. And then I went to the leaders retreat in Taos, and that was very informative. I like to mention the three main items that I attended, and of course everybody that was there was the main one was that all boards have a role in ensuring equality for Native American students, as you mentioned before. And then I went to the Heart of Change with Debbie Montoya from the PED, and also I went to the Medium Relations for School Board Officials. That's the media, excuse me. The next item I went to the Administrators Retreat held last week here at the school board room. I attended quite a few outbreak sessions. There were the food services, the procurement, the fraud triangle personnel, and then I went to Ms. Moffitt's JOM parent involvement, which I would like to commend her on her presentation. And I also want to thank her for her JOM report that's in our packet. It is very welcome. Thank you. And then the special legislative meeting that we had on the 28th with our lobbyist, and they brought up some dates that we need to discuss for our representatives and senators to meet, and before we leave tonight, we need to bring that up, Madam President.
Yes. So noted. Ms. Jeff, you have anything?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, thank you, school board members, for selecting me or voting for me, and I really appreciate it. And then thank you, audience that are out there, as well as the staff and the administration. Just a couple of things, board members and Madam President, is I really want Mr. Hyatt to really collaborate with the superintendent about the concerns from the parents. I really want those addressed, and I really want him to email us the outcome. Because, again, I sat in a couple of times at the school board meetings, and none of these concerns were ever answered. And so I really want to make sure that, you know, he gets to the bottom of these. I want these questions answered. There's quite a few, and a lot of them really talked about, you know, the fundraising, the policy, the communication, the school bus issue. I've heard this before. As a legislator, was very concerned about the bridges, concerned about the buses, because, you know, we have to take our rural communities in consideration as well. And then the other complaints, you know, regarding the reading, you know, I think that that's an issue that we also need to also talk about in one of these school board meetings, and talk about the reading level. Why isn't our students at that reading capacity in order for them to graduate, and they're having a hard time getting jobs? And I think that that's the key, because even as a former legislator and working there in Santa Fe, you know, we had that third grade retention, or third grade, you know, to hold back the students. And so this is, I know for Gallup McKinley County School, it's a huge concern, because we are failing our Native American students, and I think that reading is the key, and we need to figure out how we can really work on the reading level for our children, so that they can, you know, continue on with their education. And then the dual credit as well, you know. So there's a lot of concerns, and I want some answers, and I think that our parents deserve, they truly do deserve those answers, as well as the coaches. You know, I also got a complaint from Crown Point from some of the parents there about some of the coaches, and why one wasn't rehired to coach for the football team. So there's some, you know, concerns, and I really want some feedback back, and I'm hoping that I can give the superintendent to work on that for a week and get back with us on that. So I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Jeff, we will get some answers to you this week, and then, as you know, Mr. Chappetti is out of town this week. I'm sure there'll be some items that he can get back to you next week. Some of these items are concerns that we have communicated in board meetings answers to in the past. And I know that you're new, but we can revisit some of those things. We can also provide some of those presentations that we've given on things such as transportation. I know has been one that we've given presentations on. Some of the coaching and athletic things, we can give you further information about some of the things that are happening in the district. But yeah, I understand them. Maybe look at different ways to get that information back out to parents, whether that's through a website, because I don't think a board meeting always is the best way to get that information out. Okay. And so maybe we can, you guys can shoot some ideas of better ways that we can communicate that information, because not everybody has access to the internet, not everybody has access to being here. And so whether it's a flyer or whether we push that information out through principals to make sure that people hear the answers.
I just got a phone call this morning from Mr. Bond, and I know his rotation of the report is coming up, and I gave him some hints on little things that we needed. And I think just for, I know he presented before, and Frank's told us things before, but I think just again for the community, and that, you know, we need to hear the collaboration that's happening with the county, with NDOT, at Santa Fe, the Indian Affairs, all those different things, just to give us a brief summary on everything again and what they're doing to try to resolve that problem. And he did have some suggestions, of course, with Corrine being there now, they want to do more on communication to the parents, and and she's going to be the one trying to bring that communication to them. So I just wanted to let the board know that, but I think it's also good for us to review what's happening with the transportation also. Mr. Hideman, your report?
Just two comments, thank you. One, I'd just like to respond to Jeff's mention of reading and so on. A year ago, we had a fair amount of discussion, I think, about what we call disaggregated scores on standardized testing, where the Native American students always end up in the bottom group, and that's been a historic pattern. There's nothing new about it. It's never been solved in this district fully, and the question is then, how do we improve the academic performance? But there we get into the question of, when we get into the ideas of Navajo language and culture in the curriculum and so on, it's not seen as something separate from supporting academic development. It's seen as a better method to achieve better academic connectedness for Native American students and so on. And that's a whole story, and we haven't talked about that so much lately, I think, because now we're kind of in the cycle of waiting for the next round of test scores to come from the state. When they come out in fall, then you've got something that propels that again. And then we have the matter of the tests themselves have been changed now, and how the scores will look and how we interpret that with the system. But it doesn't go away. It's facing us, I think, underneath all the time, because that's part of what we're about. And then the other half of that is, the question of whether the standardized tests really reflect all of the the really important things that we think constitute learning and development for our students. But the other area I want to just comment on briefly is, after the special meeting in Crown Point, before and after, let me back up a step. I think there have been some deep divisions in our school system internally that we've seen in the past year and maybe longer. And we've also heard numerous references during this past year to perceived differences between the rural schools and the town schools. Some of the people in the we call outlying areas because we're Gallup-centric, and saying that the town schools get more of certain things than the country schools, or whatever we want to call them. So we've had those kind of divisions. But before and after the last meeting, I got a number of phone calls and emails and so on that said to me, there are some really deep divisions, not just in those ways, but within our parent communities, even within District 2 and so on, some really widely opposing viewpoints on certain things. And so the comment I want to make on that is, I guess that number one, that our board chair, Mr. Manuelito's questions to the candidates, I think, made even more sense after I reflected. You asked about healing. What can we do for healing in the Crown Point situation? But I think it goes beyond just the Crown Point school situation. We've got lots of things that need healing and bringing us together. And there are two things that bring people together, it occurs to me. One is a common enemy. We've got to find a common enemy where we can work together. And then the other is common goals. And I think that's the job of the board, is to find those common goals that represent things. But I say that because with that I want to say this comment, and if nothing else, just to say it to my colleagues. We have, I think, in the past year been able to be a board that works together and can disagree and still work together. And I think we need to keep that up, where we can have the freedom to have differing views. We work it through. We vote our conscience opinions and our viewpoint, and we've had split votes, and we keep going on together. And I think we've been healthy in that regard, and I trust that that will continue because, again, I just thinking of some of the communications that happened the last weeks, and I think we've got to do our job working together, and that includes at times honestly disagreeing or having differing ideas. That's healthy. That's okay, because I think there are some differing camps and views out there in our constituents that are not easily bridged and brought together, but that's just life. So let's keep going.
Thank you, Lynn.
That's kind of abstract statement, but that's.
Kevin?
I also attended a special meeting in Crown Point. I attended the leadership trainings and seminar in Taos. Let's see here. And then I attended the meeting we had with our lobbyists, and I'm hoping that we able to meet with them very soon again to make sure that we get all our priorities straight for our legislators. And that's my report. So.
Thank you, Kevin. I also did the special meeting, the leadership retreat in Taos. I wanted to kind of bring up some topics on that one because I know, and one question that I did ask Mr. Kennedy, which is the attorney for Cuddy and McCarthy, because I was very concerned about the open meetings that was commented on, and I asked him, you know, what happened, and if we had a board meeting, and if we needed to add this item, and he said that if it's a discussion only item, then it can be done. And we didn't take no action on that discussion because that's the first thing he asked me, and I said no, we didn't. So he said that as long as it's a discussion item only, then it was okay to add to the agenda. But I told him, well, it was already on the agenda as a dual credit report. And he said, okay. He goes, then you guys don't have, if you guys were there to discuss it, then that was a discussion that you guys had. I just remembered that, and I wrote my notes down on I attended one of the breakout session, which is board president roles and responsibility, open and closed meeting, and superintendent's evaluation. That's the session that I attended, and I remember asking that question, and I found my notes on it. There were other sessions that I did attend. There was one on an audit. Very informative again, and I'm glad that they offered this one, especially for me being a new president to the board. It was very helpful for me, kind of the do's and don'ts and how to keep the board and the board meeting aligned. I'm new, but I'm very thankful to my colleagues for helping me and the staff here to continue to assist me. So, and then I also sat in a couple of the sessions for the administrative retreat and the special legislative meeting we had, our work session we had with our lobbyists. And I think that we're, for everybody, we do have priorities that we mentioned, several of them. We need to kind of limit ourselves, but I think we did real good on that meeting. I'm glad that we have some tentative dates set up, and I do want to revisit that before we adjourn, so we could give those dates that were available to Mateka. And I also wrote down the same thing that Mrs. Jeff mentioned to our Mr. Hyatt, to relay the concerns that were brought up tonight to our superintendent. And I also put that we wanted some kind of feedback back from him on those comments. So thank you very much, board members, for that, for your reports. We'll go ahead and move to 3, notice of communication. I do have an addition to this one. There's August 2nd, the IEC meeting at 6 p.m., which is tomorrow. tomorrow evening. If you could mark your calendars for that. August 2nd, 2006, we have the new teacher orientation. I know, board members, I'm interested in attending that. I don't know if we need to advertise that, if more than 2 is attending. I believe Mr. Manini is attending that. Are you guys going to be attending that also? Anybody else?
Which one's that?
August 8th, the new teacher orientation.
No, I'll be out of state.
On Monday. Do we have an agenda for that? Or can we have an agenda for that? The orientation, the teacher orientation?
Yes, we already have that in place, and I can send that to you right now.
Okay. Is there anything that, can you kind of tell us what they do there? What are you guys planning?
Madam President, we're trying to streamline a little bit. As I mentioned before, I think we kind of overwhelmed people last time, and we didn't get all the information that we needed from our new employees to get them ready to get paid, which is an important piece when you come to a new area and you're living and want some food and things like that. So what we're doing is we're doing, for the first couple hours of the day, doing what do you call it? Introductions, like we did last year. Give them little pieces of information about the things that they need to know about the district, and then we'll break into to make sure that they have opportunities to get their paperwork done so they can be hired and everything's done correctly so they can get paid. And we're providing a lunch for them and then releasing them back to their school sites in the afternoon so they have more planning time, because one of the concerns that new teachers had is that they were rushed a little bit too much in getting ready for school. And those new teachers to the area need a little bit more time to get things ready. So that's why we cut out the activities for that afternoon, but we do plan on providing some of those opportunities still later on.
Was that the time that they did the bike ride and the tour of Window Rock and Zuni? Was that?
So we're looking at providing those opportunities in a different way and not on that day, so it's not so hectic.
Okay.
For them.
Okay. Is that where that one training and all that, the one that Pauletta presented to us, is that where that?
It could be, no,
Oh, okay.
but like I said, some of those activities were culturally based. We're also planning some of those cultural activities through the mentoring program so that cultural relevance and cultural sensitivity is provided through the mentoring opportunities that we're going to give this year. But no, it's not specifically embedded in that.
Okay, thank you. But that's on August 8th, and then August 9th, there's a professional development days. August 11th is first day of school. And just to emphasize to everybody again, I think that, we did hear a concern. We need to meet more, get the word out there. I don't know what all being done, but I know I did email some of the open houses to Terry. Okay, thank you. And I know there's a new website. I think that'll be interesting to get used to now.
Yeah, I'm still getting used to it. I believe it was uploaded today, over the weekend. So we still have some work to do. And so I understand that some of the parents mentioned that there was some delays and things like that. And so there was. We didn't always expect some of those delays, but it is up now. But we still need to add some more pages to it to make sure that it's as informative as our last one. It is a little more user-friendly, but any suggestions to make it more user-friendly, we would appreciate.
Is there pictures?
Are there pictures in it? Yeah, the whole backdrop of the website has pictures. So.
Okay, it'd be nice to pull that up tomorrow. August 15th is our next Board of Education meeting. September 5th is Labor Day. September 6th is another board meeting. Board members, I just want to give you a heads up. I did get some recommendations and some requests for us to go out into our communities for our board meetings. I know right now we have David Skeets, Crown Point Mid, and Theroux Elementary, oh, this is glaring, and Navajo Mid. And I think there's some other schools that are going to request for us to come out to their area. I think Tohatchi and Twin Lakes may be one of them. So just be prepared that we're getting more requests to go out to the community. But once I get that in formal writing, I will let the board members also know. It was just a verbal request right now. Moving on to, is it new business F? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Development of instrument for evaluation of superintendent 2016-2017. This is a discussion item. I think this is something that we're going to start meeting, doing a couple of work sessions on. And I think, Lynn, was this one yours?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we all know that we got way behind this past year. So we need to put this in gear as soon as possible, both for its usefulness to the board and also for fairness to the superintendent to have the expectations and so on identified up front this year, earlier. And what I want to say is that in my mind, F and G on the agenda are interrelated, because remember the form that we used in the evaluation instrument this time. It was one that had been used, I guess, in the district before, and it had one page that had goals. They were really goals that were to be fulfilled or accomplished by the superintendent, and we didn't use that section the way it was because there hadn't been any goals set for this year. And I think that if we formalize the goals, that probably the ones that we've mentioned a number of times, and integrate that into the instrument for evaluation, because then if we've got goals, the superintendent's job is to provide the leadership and so on to make those happen and help make those happen. So those two items overlap to me, the way I see it. The one instrument we looked at this last time when we made a choice did not have goals in a general way in the format, and the one we did. But I think we need to somehow select that as soon as possible, and whether we do it in a work session or appoint the board as committee of the whole and be a committee to work on it, that'd be another way, but it comes out the same. So, but we're going into the new year, and it'd be nice if this were in place already as part of the whole, approach and plan for the new year. But I hope we could do this within the next, let's say, within the next month, if we have and I don't know how you want to approach it. We've got several instruments before, if we want to look at those again, or if anybody else has other ideas or models. Or
Mr. Benini?
Madam President, we already set some dates for his evaluation. I believe on the first one is to talk to him about is October 3rd. Correct me if I'm wrong. And that was at 3 o'clock, followed by the board meeting. And hopefully that doesn't last. We get an hour for lunch or dinner. Another one is the action item on the superintendent. That's on November 7th at 3 o'clock also. Just to remind the board that with those dates that we've already set.
Mr. Benini, I have October 3rd as a tentative legislative. The one that I have for the superintendent's evaluation is on October 24th. I have go through the evaluation. And then the 7th I do have school board action item on superintendent's evaluation. So that's when we would approve it.
Madam.
The tool.
Yeah, I
The
think
tool.
the email we got from, I never know how to say the lobbyist's name, but I
Ms.
think,
Matejka.
yeah, I had that October 3rd
Yeah, as a legislative.
legislative meeting
Yeah.
in that email. Maybe we had mentioned that date earlier for the superintendent.
I stand corrected. That is correct. And then we're also, the other one was on, with Matejka, was on September 2nd
Yes, sir.
and 16th.
Yes, sir. So if we want to do a work session this month, what day are you guys suggesting? And for the board members, I'm sorry, that I did get a chance to talk with Andy. Andy said that he would provide samples if we wanted that. We just have to contact him. But I think the one, Lynn, that you had last year, I think we need to revisit that one too.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I don't think we need to change the evaluation since it's already been enforced the way we're evaluating right now, which our recommendations are. And with talking to him the last time, he is in favor of staying with the same evaluation that we presented, with the exception of the 10-point grading system.
I don't know, I still think that we need to probably sit down and go over whether or not we want to change the evaluation guidelines, or how we want to do that. And I think that if we do set a special meeting to decide that, I don't know if we can discuss that during executive, and of exactly what we want and how we want it and why.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I think the sooner the better, I think, because I'd like to see if I can get an update on that, and to start this evaluation instead of prolonging it, and to finally take action how we're going to evaluate the superintendent.
Can I suggest August 15th before our regular school board meeting to have a work session on the tool? That way we don't have to make another trip in. We'll already be here, and we can jump right into our board meeting at 6.
I'm in favor of that.
So, okay. Work session, 3 o'clock? Okay. Mr. Manini, on Monday, the 15th at 3 o'clock, would that work for you, sir?
No, ma'am, I'll be out of town that whole day. I'll be missing the board meeting completely.
Oh, okay. Okay, board members, we'll go ahead and keep the work session on Monday at 3 o'clock.
That's fine for me. Like I said, on the 22nd, if we wanted a separate meeting, like if we did the 22nd, I think we should do it so that by the time we get to the September 6th meeting, we can take the action. Yeah, because that then leaves only a short 2 months before that they review with the superintendent. That's none too long for getting things going.
Okay.
But
I think the 15th.
15th is, unless you
Yeah.
want to look for another date for everybody to be here.
Another date, so you're suggesting the 22nd also?
Well, I'm raising it as a possibility
Okay.
because Joe's going to be gone on the 15th. We've said before with the evaluation thing, it's ideal to have everybody present, but maybe you're not always possible.
Madam President, that'll be fine, but I'm going to warn you that I have personal obligations coming up between now and October the 1st. So whatever you plan on doing, please do not include me, because I have personal obligations with my son moving to Pueblo. I'm having move him. So I do not know that situation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know that, Mr. Manini.
Well, with that being said, I think we can stick with the 15th and meet the 15th prior to our board meeting.
Thank you. And so the next one would, board members, would be the dates that were available to meet with our representative and senators. We have September 2nd, September 16th, October 3rd, November 7th. And FYI, all those dates can work for me, so I'll just go by you guys' recommendation. I think if we select two dates, that would be good.
Madam Chair, I'd like to have the last one on November 7th because that'll be, by then we should really know what the budget's going to look like. I know that they're thinking of going into a special session because of the budget. And so there's going to be a huge cut, which I'm aware of, for all the districts. And so I think that would be a really good, we could have two, but I'd like to see if we have the last one on November, and to see what kind of legislation they're going to propose as well. So, I just want to make sure that my colleagues understand that we're in a crisis as far as our budget is concerned with the state. So, thank you.
Also, board members, just to let you know, we need to approve our board goals, I believe, at the next board meeting. So I think they're going to send us some information, but we're going to have to select probably, I think we had was it 7 board priorities that we need to limit to 3. So just be aware of that that's going to be coming up, I believe, probably in email form also. But so November 7th, and I would push for September 2nd, just in case we need to do something else in between those dates.
September 2nd?
Yes, sir.
And November 7th.
Yeah, because if we're talking about initiating anything, that needs to be the earlier time.
Yes.
Right, and the discussion we had with remember the meeting with the legislators, this board has not really initiated things. Other boards have, and if we want to, then it needs to get into the hopper.
That we also have, I'm sorry, Mr. Hideman.
No, that's all right. We did list quite a few possibilities.
And to keep in mind, too, there's a deadline with the New Mexico State School Board Association that we do have, I think it was September 9th, to submit our resolutions. Was it September 9th, Mr. Menini?
Yes, you're correct, but it needs to be into our voting member, Ms. Gomez up in Bloomfield before that, so she can email it to the conference so it can be on the agenda items to be voted upon. So it needs to be at least before that, Madam Chairman.
So, Madam Chair, I guess August, we're probably going to have to look at August.
Yeah.
We identify that. I will try to type up the list of items from that meeting. I don't think it came out to anybody who was going to compile the list that we mentioned, and I'll try to see if I can do that maybe even tomorrow. I'll be homebound tomorrow where I can type and on the road a lot lately. We say type without typewriters now.
Okay. So if we're looking at in August, With the last, in the 22nd through the 26th for a legislative,
For a special meeting on identifying our legislative priorities
Yes,
before
sir.
we would meet with the legislators themselves
Yes.
on the 2nd.
On a Friday?
What does August 25th look like?
Thursday.
Thursday?
August 25th. Let's see.
Good afternoon? Good afternoon on the 25th.
About what time?
1 or 3.
Okay, I just text Mateka and she said that I already sent the email out to legislators on those 4 dates. Oh, okay. So, at 3 o'clock.
3?
Yes, sir. Can you pass those dates on to Joan or whoever does the notifications, sir?
We're going to try. We may want you to stay after for a second to make sure we get those correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
With that, board member,
Are we dealing with G some more?
we can. Go ahead.
I just want to mention the 4 goals. I feel I've monopolized this a little bit. So if somebody has different ones or additional ones or whatever, the ones that have been mentioned, and they were mentioned in connection with the budget development also, I think. One was the parent and community engagement, increasing parent and community engagement. That, to me, means both on the district and individual school levels. Number 2 was strengthening the academic achievement of students, and again, especially of Navajo Native students in the disaggregated scores, closing the achievement gaps or the testing gaps. Number 3 was the, and there's again 2 pieces to this to me, but the integration, the use of Navajo language and culture in the curriculum, and with that, the strengthening, revitalizing Navajo language. And then the 4th, which we haven't really talked about much, but mentioned a little bit, is curriculum review. And that may mean different things to different people. I keep thinking that the nature of education, the way we're needing to address it, because a school district is a subdivision of the state system. And the PED has the ultimate authority, in a sense, and that's why they set up and tell us what kind of standardized testing we have to do, what kind of certification we have to have of teachers and all that. It's really a state system. And yet, when we look at testing in English and math, as important as they are, and reading and writing, I keep thinking there are some things that might be missed in all of that that are important in life. Locally, culturally, or even nationally. So when a local board has limited options, I think, limited authority and limited privileges in setting the curriculum of a district. But I think it'd be good to look at it and think about it and talk about it at times more than we get to, because when we talk about the function of education, to me, it's to help enable and empower students individually, but in the process also families, family units, communities, the whole society. And I just think there are things besides, or in addition, not instead of, but in addition to English language skills and math. And I just think, are there unique things? I'll mention an example that's come up before. Diabetes is an epidemic in our society. Diabetes is an epidemic in our communities. Should we the wellness committee right now is trying to look further at diabetes as something that they can address as a wellness committee. Support improvements in that. To me, that's such a crisis, health-wise. Lots of things are. Life is full of crises. But is there something we'd want to, just as an example, look and say, is that something we want to really make sure is in our curriculum in some stronger way? Or it could be a totally different kind of thing.
Madam Chairman?
So, when I say curriculum review, I'm just saying that could be lots of different things.
That would be great for our goals, but not for the legislature, because the legislatures can't obtain any information to present to action item on the legislative floor with these items.
Mr. Menini, I think that's what Lynn is talking about, is the goals.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm talking about our own board goals.
Yeah.
And you're right, there's a distinction, I think, between what's appropriate for legislative action. Sometimes they can be the same, they could be different.
Thank you for making yourself clear. Thank you.
So just to announce again, board members, August 15 will be a board work session at 3 o'clock to review the evaluation tool. August 25th will be a legislative work session to downsize our legislative priorities. And the two dates we're going to pass on to Mateka that will work for the board members will be September 2nd and also November 7th to meet with our representatives and senators.
Are both those at 1:30? September 2 is 1:30, right? Lobbies.
I didn't write the times down. Oh, yes, I did. Hold on. Second, yes.
The second is 1:30.
1:30. November 7 is at 3 p.m. right before our board meeting.
And then if we do superintendent evaluation also on November 7th, that would be an executive session in the meeting, I guess, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I move this meeting be adjourned.
Well, we can't, because Kevin went to the bathroom.
We are quorum.
It's not 11 o'clock.
It is now 10:05, and we are adjourned. Roll call, please. Oh, sorry, roll call.
Ms. Jeff? Yes. Mr. Hideman?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
And Ms. Manuelito?
Yes.